Go lay down. June, go lay down. June, go lay down. Shit.
Can you hear us now?
No.
Oh, says they can hear us now.
Really?
Can you hear us?
A little loose in the back. There we go. Man, you know, sometimes, I'll tell you what sorcery it was, Pathos. Sometimes it is as simple as the fact that when I moved the microphone to sit down earlier, I unplugged it by a micro inch. And therefore, it was getting shaky. Anyway, we're here now. What is up, everybody?
Hello.
It is slightly after 5 p.m. on the West Coast, slightly after 7 p.m. on the Third Coast, and no matter where you are now in a video store, your weekly hangout for people who miss hanging out, talking about movies. I'm one of your two clerks / hosts, Adam Protextor.
And I'm your second clerk / host, Stephanie Thoreson.
And we are just here chilling on a Tuesday, as we always do. If you're first time watching the show, breaking it down for you a little bit, this is a hangout space. We want you to be in the chat. We want to hear from you. We usually start with, what did we watch this week? We're going to talk about what we watched. We want to hear what you watched. If you want a recommendation or you want to give a recommendation, please do. After that, we're going to go to new arrivals, which is going to be stuff that we got into the store this week. We have a really exciting actually, it's like a lot of new arrivals. I might actually have to split it between this week and next.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's actually quite robust. And then we're going to, of course, do our movie club. Every week we decide on a movie to watch together and discuss the next week. This week's movie club pick is Vengeance is Mine, directed by Shohei Imamura from 1979, as part of our ongoing quest to dive into Japanese cinema in April. How are you doing, Stephanie?
I'm doing well. How's everyone doing out there? We want to hear from you. Not only how is your week going, how is your day going, whatever you want to check in with, but also what did you watch this week?
What did you watch this week, guys? We were talking to Alon about potentially doing a double stream of this to Facebook as well. Mm-hmm. I think we should start that up again.
Okay.
But you have to be on Twitch to be in the chat.
Okay.
Sorry, my mind just wandering. Because I posted about it because sometimes I post about the show on Facebook. And I just, sorry, brain fart, just realized like I'm posting about it there, but I'm not sharing the link. Whatever, ignore that. That'll do it. Okay, and that'll do it. Are you quoting Pathos?
No. Oh, that's very funny. Oh, wow. I'm not sure, Pathos. I didn't even know that was going on.
Yeah, we have been kind of in our own little world of every day, kind of. Honestly, we're still very much adapting and setting up to being in a new space. We moved across the country. And for those of you who might not know, we moved out to the West Coast about a month ago. So, I know that Alon covered for me on some Monday nights and has done that a few times because I normally have a retro stream on Mondays for retro games, and I'm not fully set up there. But I didn't know that Alon hasn't been on at all in a while. We should probably reach out to him.
Yeah, we should check in.
We've been in we've just been in our bubble so much of
That's true.
Just getting up and doing what needs to be done that day. Pretty bad at correspondence.
Yeah.
Hoping to actually hop on some Zoom calls and real calls and catch up with friends and folks soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to catch up with friends and folks soon. This is going to be, let's see, in 4 days? 4 days?
Someone has a birthday.
Next week, I'll be 21!
Yeah, that's right. Your
kidding.
birthday is Saturday.
My birthday is Saturday. It is my first birthday in LA, my second birthday during a global pandemic. What a wild ride. What a hoot.
What a hoot and a holler that is.
So if anyone has any fun, stay-at-home birthday ideas, we're not vaccinated, so we can't really go out and do anything. But if you've got some fun wild ride, stay-at-home party ideas, let me know.
I think your birthday gift might actually be a vaccination because we in LA County, people 16 to 50 become eligible on the 16th of the month.
Oh.
So we can actually start signing up within a week or so.
Ooh.
Fingers crossed. I think we become eligible. I know, it's coming.
That's exciting.
And the fucked up thing is that I fly out to Austin to shoot a movie at the end of the month, and I really wanted to be vaccinated before going on set. I'm just going to have to be, everyone else is going to be vaccinated. I'm going to be in my triple mask. But I really wanted to, but because you have to wait 2 weeks between vaccinations, because the second one knocks you out for a couple days, it's just not going to happen.
It's the whole thing.
Who knew?
Hey, you know what? Escapism. That's why we love it.
That's why we love escapism?
Oh, I was just talking about, like, speaking of movies and TV shows and all that fun stuff. You know, you can't go out into the real world, but you can what? Watch a bunch of movies.
You can watch a bunch of movies. You can even go so far as to start a Twitch stream with some of your friends or your significant other and business partner to talk about the movies you watch. So, Pathos, would love to hear what you watched. We'll go ahead and get started, though. Why not just dive right in? Steph, I think, full disclosure, Pathos, you're a regular viewer and friend. I feel like this show is all about community. What is the dog doing with that face?
She's chewing.
She ate something that belonged to her brother, I think. She's eating some catnip. I feel like it's always hard to pivot from, like, the intro into, like, the what you watched. I feel like we need a little bit of like an icebreaker question, or maybe we just jump in.
Yeah.
I love doing the questions we've been doing though, where we ask like, what's one movie from like a few weeks ago it was like, what's your favorite kids sports movie? And I think last week it was like, what's a movie you grew up on that let you down upon rewatch? We'll have to jump in. In any case, feel free to join us in the chat. A few points of order. Don't be mean to anyone for not having seen something. Don't talk shit or hype up something you haven't seen, ideally. Those are really the only rules. Other than that, you can always follow us on Instagram. Instagram is where we maintain a social media presence, where we post our movie club pics, where we post pictures of new arrivals and goof off. That is at You Are in a Video Store. You can also follow me at Protextor and
follow me at Flock of Schmeagles. Flock _of_Schmeagles.
What up, Wedge?
Hello, Wedge.
Oh my God, you know what? I just realized. Hold up. Hey. I forgot to write down one of the movies I watched because I have it in common with you, and I cannot believe. Well, I can believe because I finished it very late at night. But I'm gonna have to add Akira because I also watched Akira.
Oh yeah.
And I forget when. I think after Demons. I think I watched it. Cool beans. Well. Then I watched two of the same movies you did this week, Wedge. What up, Wedge? What up, Pathos? Didn't watch a whole ton. Finished all of Star Trek Discovery. You mentioned you were watching that. And watched Red Planet. I actually watched this.
Mars.
You know what's funny? is I think that... No, that's wood. So these are all... The risers here are all... Well, I'm not going to dig through it. Anyway, one of the tapes that's back there being used to rise up is a VHS copy of Red Planet. Assuming you're talking about the one with Tom Sizemore and Carrie-Anne Moss. Do you remember this movie?
Vaguely.
It was like post-Matrix. There was like a Mars boom in the early
I feel like I
aughts.
remember the cover, which is just like an eclipse, right?
I think that you're thinking of Mission to Mars.
Okay, Mars, go off.
Because that's what happened, like, I think in the year 2000, I think that because of technology and sci-fi storytelling, there was definitely a resurgence in sci-fi, and I think that because it was the year 2000, everyone started thinking, like, two things, flying cars and going to Mars. Mm-hmm. Flying cars and going to Mars. And Val Kilmer, that's right, Val Kilmer. I remember, like, seeing that in theater and, like, as a junior high kid and being like, I loved Mission to Mars. And I remember a parent of a friend of mine took us in a friend group to see Mission to Mars. And afterwards, he just complained that it was 2001 but dumber. Which he was absolutely right about, and I just had no idea because I hadn't seen 2001 yet.
Interesting.
Gary Sinise is in Mission to Mars. That's a Brian De Palma movie.
It is?
Yeah.
Weird.
It's right when Brian De Palma started to kind of fall off, but still make really interesting stuff, like Snake Eyes and Mission to Mars.
Oh, Snake Eyes is Nicolas Cage, right?
Mm-hmm. Remember we watched it and we're like, oh my god, this is one of the most thrilling first half hours to a movie that has nothing to do with its last hour. It's just such a good setup and just does nothing with it.
Maybe you should make a short film next time.
Oh, shots fired at legendary director Brian De Palma.
I'm just fucking around.
Oh my god, Wedge. You're going to watch Carnal Knowledge this week. Awesome. And Closer, which community pick. It's interesting that you say that it starts with a Damien Rice song. Were you a Damien Rice fan in college?
Sing me a Damien Rice.
I don't
Sing
know.
me a
I was
Damien
not.
Rice.
I'm not really familiar with Damien Rice, so I can't. And unfortunately, Wedge can't because of the limitations of the text format.
What?
Is there a famous song?
Is this like on a Grey's Anatomy soundtrack or something?
It's on the Closer soundtrack.
I'm gonna look up Damien Rice.
Also, just speaking of college memories and Closer, I got into a hugely stupid fight with my college girlfriend about the movie Closer because she hated it and thought it was dumb, and I loved it and thought it was smart. But looking back, it was definitely something about one of the characterizations made her uncomfortable, and that's the space she was arguing from, and I was too young and dumb to pick up on that, so I just insensitively argued with her. Anyway, big fight about the movie Closer in my past. He's an Irish singer. He's an Irish singer, like you are, Stephanie Thoreson.
I remember.
Oh, Stephanie Thoreson. I can't wait to watch. I kind of want to watch Carnal Knowledge. Are you listening to it right now? Don't get us muted now.
Oh, I won't. That's what I'm holding up to my ear. Okay, so this sounds like... Was this like the whole soundtrack of Garden State?
I mean, I think it's very vibe similar. Same year. Is Garden State the same year as
it
Closer?
Like
it might be. I think they're both...
You know that song? Y'all know what I'm talking about, right?
2006 era indie pop. 2006. Did you do that?
You know, the Garden State soundtrack.
Did you throw that dog toy?
I did.
Okay, I was like, it looked like it fell from the ceiling. Very similar vibe, asserts Wedge.
Well, it's so my maybe I've told you this. I'm not sure. My college roommate had an alarm clock set to sync up with her CD player, and it was the Garden State soundtrack. And so I woke up to the first song on the Garden State soundtrack every morning for about 6 months, and it drove me insane. And I was like, it's like tinkly, and it's like guitar, and just sort of like soft. It's like coaxing you out of bed. That's not my style.
That's not my style.
I need someone to be like, wake up.
I never saw Garden State.
Really?
Yeah, I worked at a video store when it came out. It always was rented by... I was pretentious. I was. I worked at a video store when it came out. It rented like hotcakes to freshman girls, and the guys I worked with were like, that movie's bad. They're like, it's the guy from Scrubs acting like an asshole. Don't watch it.
I mean, to be honest, I have only seen it once, maybe twice, really long time ago, and I just remember it being like very heavy-handed. This is an indie movie.
See, that's the vibe, and at that point I was just not into that indie twee thing, because like it just had no that's like me at peak, like I'm trying to absorb everything and make my movie, and I think it's partially because I was making my movie that I was like had no patience for watching things that I didn't think were in the realm I wanted to be working in.
Yeah.
But that said, I'm not trying to shit on something I haven't seen, because one, that's not cool, and it's a rule of the show that I don't. But two, I have a bad history of letting friends in my college years, I can point to maybe 5 or 10 movies that I just never watched because a friend told me I shouldn't. And then looking back, I'm like, why didn't I make my mind up for myself? So maybe that's one that I should watch to have a little bit of connective tissue with my generation.
I would be very curious to rewatch it, only to see, like, if there is genuine merit there, or if it was just, like, something that was zeitgeisty and, like... Because I think it's funny. I think that there are films of that time that were very popular and that had like indie sensibilities.
Oh yeah.
That completely hold up.
Like what?
Like Amelie.
Yeah. Amelie's also like, okay, I'm gonna like throw this out there. Amelie is also like directed by maybe the greatest French stylist of the 90s.
Right, but to your point, it wasn't like a mainstream movie and every college freshman girl was renting it and obsessing over it.
It was mainstream because Miramax distributed it. So it actually did get major theatrical release, and it was at Blockbuster. It was a guaranteed we have it in stock title at Blockbuster.
All right, well, maybe because it was...
It was Amelie, but Amelie represents something really cool, which is like, it feels like about every 20 years there's a foreign film that blows up, and people are like, you know what, I should watch more foreign films.
Yeah.
Like, it was Parasite a couple years ago, and 20 years ago was Amelie.
Yeah.
And maybe in the middle there is, I don't know what from like 2010 would have been the big one. But it feels like there's always some big crossover hit. But yes, I agree with you that Amelie was particularly primed to strike at the heart of like independent, the like kind of when new media and the internet was new, technology felt exciting, and Amelie's like color graded to shit, and
that was one of the first DVDs that I bought with my own money.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah, I bought it used from Blockbuster with a little red sticker on it.
I think I bought mine from Half Price Books.
And a girl I dated stole it from me.
Really?
Which is like very college, I feel like.
Yeah. How many movies and or books do you have, or does someone else have of yours because you dated them and then it was awkward?
Oh, none, because it's awkward. I mean,
she intentionally...
No. I was like, where is that? This was not her fault. It was not a grudge thing. This was simply a girl I hung out with a few times. We'd watched it, and it's one of those things where you're like, where is my copy of that? And then 4 years later, you're like, right.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever. I found that's an easy movie to find. I think I bought my replacement copy at Half Price Books for $3. I love Amelie. I would love to rewatch Amelie.
I would too.
Le Fabuleux Destin de Amélie Poulain.
It's great.
Amazing. That director, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, did... Oh, man, I'm going to get so canceled. My favorite... you're going to hate me. My favorite Alien movie. Alien Resurrection. My favorite. I don't like to tell people it's my favorite because they go, what?
The interesting thing about Amelie is that was a bunch of short stories that he wrote and that he fused together into one script.
That's interesting. Another interesting thing about it is that following Alien Resurrection, that is the first French production that Jeunet did that he split with his previous production designer and collaborator Marc Caro on. It used to be Jeunet et Caro, and they did Delicatessen and City of Lost Children, and they were like the dark enfant terrible of the French like indie scene. And then
great cocktail, by the way.
What an enfant
terrible. An enfant terrible.
What is an enfant terrible?
It's like champagne and lemon bitters, and I don't know. It's something French.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Amelie is like his foray into like brightness, because those two movies are very much about like they're very dystopian and dark. And then after that, he did A Very Long Engagement, which he recast. What's her name? The main actress. She was really hot for a second after Amelie.
Audrey Tautou?
Audrey Tautou. Yeah.
Tautou?
I don't know.
Tautou?
Who knows?
Tautou.
You're the one who took French. How do you say it? Tautou. Probably. Very Long Engagement, which was then like melancholy, and I kind of get this sensibility from his career, his filmography, that he was the more romantic and that Marc Caro was the more like industrial.
That makes sense.
Wedge has still never seen it. Well, it's a great movie. We should definitely look. I'm all for globe trotting with this show, and trying to like do little. I feel like foreign film. Look, I've always kind of had a grudge against the idea that foreign film is a genre. I don't like the video store that I worked at for 4 years, that I adored, that I will stand until the day I die, had a foreign wall, and I fought against that for a long time, until I was just told, Adam, it's never going to change, accept it. I just don't think it needs to be, that a movie needs to be segregated from the rest of the lot based on the language it's in or the country it was shot in, because an action movie is an action movie. Comedy's a comedy, and I think that we create these artificial divides for ourselves. So, on that note, since we're doing so many Japanese movies, maybe we can hop to France in a month or two.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, be fun. Chance to watch some Godard again.
Ooh, yeah.
There's plenty of Godard I'd love to rewatch. Quick cue. Let's go back. Okay. Speaking of We skipped ahead a little bit. Okay, so Red Planet, fun movie. It's kind of about a killer AI, similar to 2001, but it's also kind of, in my opinion, suffers from that post-2000 tech boom. Like, everything kind of looks off.
Yeah.
But Red Planet, Mission to Mars double feature would probably be very fun. Turn of the century sci-fi schlock.
People are like, we're still here?
We're still here, right? Okay, Vengeance is Mine, Akira, and the Ten Commandments on TV. First of all, I feel like watching the Ten Commandments on TV is the way to watch the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you watched that on Easter. It was Easter Sunday.
TMC?
If you TMZ.
TCM?
No, it should just be TMZ from now on. TMZ from now on. Turner Movies Zang.
Tonight on Turner Movies Zang.
Maybe the Z is just the S. Turner Movies.
Welcome back to Turner Movies.
Do y'all have a favorite Bible epic? And first of all, Happy Easter if you celebrated Happy Easter. Hope you had a good Sunday. I wanted to watch Cecil B. DeMille's King of Kings, and I just straight up ran out of time because it's a 2.5-hour movie, and we had work we had to do on Sunday. But I'm probably going to try and watch it this week. Now, I wonder if you have a favorite Bible epic. For me, it is going to be a tie between the Gospel According to Matthew, which is by Pasolini, sometimes called the Gospel According to St. Matthew, although that's technically a mistitle because the word saint is omitted for a reason. And that is Pasolini, Italian director in the 60s, telling the gospel story through the lens of a Marxist, Jesus as a socialist Marxist revolutionary. Really great movie. Which then in turn was the biggest influence on my favorite Bible movie, Last Temptation of Christ, Scorsese. I was really into that movie. I think it's the first thing. I think as someone who was raised in the church and kind of rejected it and kind of got really agnostic/atheist in high school, Last Temptation of Christ allowed me to appreciate the story as a powerful metaphor that I could identify with, divorced from all the dogma and control that I didn't like about organized religion.
Yeah, I think that we actually watched Last Temptation, you, I'm sure, like third or fourth time, me first time, almost a year ago exactly. It was the beginning of quarantine, around Easter time, and I think it was maybe the longest, most organic conversation we've ever had after watching a movie.
You're right. We did have a really wonderful conversation about it.
Yeah, because I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I'd never seen it before. I was fully on board, fully engaged, but it brought up a lot of different feelings for me than it did for you. And I think that's interesting. Yeah,
it's interesting how when you come at something from a religious perspective, even something like, just to circle back here to the Ten Commandments. Also, Cecil B. DeMille, King of Kings, was the one I wanted to watch. That's his 2.5-hour silent epic that's in Technicolor from 1927, which is nuts. And then Cecil B. DeMille made the Ten Commandments in the 30s and then remade it with Charlton Heston, the famous version in Technicolor in the 50s. So you watched his remake of his own movie. Cecil B. DeMille was the go-to guy for Bible epics. He also is responsible for probably a lot of deaths because of the way he treated extras and the way that a lot of people treated extras.
Yeah.
The flooding scene in the original Ten Commandments.
Ooh, that's so scary.
Killed a bunch of extras. But this is my question is okay, let's read what Wedge had to say. The most interesting thing about it is the story of Moses is presented as a classic tragedy where he discovers his heritage, has to give up his life at Grail throne and be exiled. Very Shakespearean. For sure. And I think that tracks with kind of like the rebirth of Shakespeare into pop culture that you also see in the 40s and 50s, especially with people like Laurence Olivier. Like, there is this push, and I'm going to go out totally on a limb here. This is me pulling film history out of my butt, and I apologize. If I'm wrong, correct me. But I feel like the 30s, Depression, the biggest box office stars of the 30s, Fred Astaire and Shirley Temple. People were sad. People wanted movies about happy, lighthearted events and love and dancing and songs. I feel like the 40s is where there was a push to make the cinema more of an adult culture thing again. And I think that's why you saw a rebirth in literary adaptations, specifically Shakespeare, which totally tracks with what you're saying, Wedge, into the 50s, where the middle, the post-war boom kind of settles into that, nuclear America Christianity and then wants the culture, but also wants to give it to the Bible Belt and make a Bible, like, in that case, I think Paramount wanting to make money off the Bible Belt and being like, give them this culture, they want this story. So it's like weird because Charlton Heston was also very Christian, so it's cynical, but it's not.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's interesting. I wonder where the ebb and flow of that comes back in, because it's, I want to say like the 90s is another big.
Like in terms of like literary?
Yeah.
I absolutely would agree with you.
Yeah.
Because like what I think technology distracts us. Like there's this is so reductive. Do not quote me on this. This is simply a lens at which we can look at this. It is not what I believe. But if you think about it as two opposites, style and substance, okay? Mm-hmm. So technology drives style, and source drives substance. So something like getting through the 50s is when you're going to have a big Technicolor boom, the widescreen boom, and so your substance maybe becomes the Bible epic, because you're spending so much money on this Technicolor epic movie, might as well make it something that you know a lot of, Poughkeepsie's going to go see, as they say. 60s, you get even more style because, hey, it's free love, baby. We're re-examining ourselves. We're breaking down. The Hays Code just ended, so we're going to show some sex on screen. We're going to show some badass motherfuckers on screen. 60s are going to get violent. 70s are going to get violent. Oh, no, here's Jaws. What's this new kind of movie? The tentpole of action movie. And then the 80s are like, hell yeah, tentpole action movie. That's all we know. And then I feel like in the 90s, stable. And then they're like, you know what? There's a lot of big action stuff. Like, are there any books we can adapt?
Yeah, there's also like another resurgence of Shakespeare adaptations.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah.
Shakespeare was really booming in the 90s.
Through the modern lens. Okay.
Because I think at that point they're like, cool, we're not going to rely on technology, but we also can't just recycle this because these kids' parents grew up watching Laurence Olivier do Hamlet. Yeah. So, give it to them with...
Ethan Hawke?
Ethan Hawke. Mm-hmm. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Bill Murray's Polonius in it.
Man,
very good.
That's one I'd like to rewatch.
Me too. We could go on a Shakespeare trip too.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
There are three of the three major versions of Hamlet. I gotta say, I recommend so hard the Royal Shakespeare Company's version of Hamlet from 2010 with David Tennant and Patrick Stewart as King Claudius and David Tennant as Hamlet. It's incredible.
Right. We started watching that one night at like 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And I was like so enthralled, but then I fell asleep.
Yeah. It's long. It's full text.
Yeah.
It's full text, shot on sets, no iambic pentameter, all natural delivery. Mm-hmm. And it just like that text comes alive.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, I'm a very big Shakespeare
I am too.
fan.
I am too. I think one of the things that I miss about Austin and about being in Austin during the spring and summertime, I mean, I know that this stuff gets clowned on, but like Shakespeare in the Park was my jam.
Oh, they got Shakespeare in the Park out here. I'm going to put this up as a hot pitch for our movie club pick. We'll come back to it. I'm going to keep it out. It's simply because we are exploring Japanese cinema this month. We'll get to our movie club pick later. We've done Tetsuo the Iron Man. We're going to talk about Vengeance is Mine. So that's kind of 80s 90s punk cinema, and then kind of like a very like Vengeance is Mine we'll talk about later, but very much like a turning point between exploitation and art cinema. And we haven't touched on Kurosawa yet, and you have to. Japan's Spielberg, you can't really talk about their industry without talking about him. And Throne of Blood is Macbeth.
I'm very interested in that. I think it's a good one to have on the shelf. I also love Pathos coming in with the tie-in from last week with all the Star Trek talk with Patrick Stewart's Hamlet is great. Mm-hmm. I mean,
he really is incredible as King Polonius, or not King Polonius, if only King Claudius. Dick, he's a really good villain. Okay. Akira.
All right, so Akira is one that you rewatched.
I rewatched this. Wedge. This movie is ridiculous. I hadn't probably seen this for years. I barely remembered it because, to be honest, this Akira was a movie that me and a close friend of mine would put on late at night when we were like in high school, and we'd drive around on a Friday night and like smoke some grandpa's lettuce in the car and be bad boys in the Midwest. And then we'd go like hang out, and he had this VHS copy of Akira, and we would all be like, yeah, put it on because it looks gorgeous, right? Because it's bright and colorful and fun and violent. And so I remember I've fallen asleep to Akira more times than I can count because it was always a fun go-to hangout movie. We weren't party animals, by the way. We just like we were the most responsible, irresponsible teens. We like drove around and like designated drove for each other, and then went back to one of our houses and hung out, just the two of us watching movies.
Yeah, I think we fall under similar umbrellas.
Yes, Wedge. I fucking loved it.
So I did not, full disclosure, rewatch this with you. The last time I watched Akira was after reading 1 and 2, junior year of high school, where I went through a phase of recreating the panels. This was when I was like first really getting into art as like a pastime. Which, speaking of ex-boyfriends taking something from you, I had one that I had spent like hours making on a canvas, and my boyfriend, we'll use that term very loosely, at the time thought it was cool, and I like was just very casually like, oh, you can have it, and then you have that moment where you go, why did I say that? Anyways, I don't know if he still has it. He probably threw it away. But all that to say is I watched that junior year of high school, and the last like 20 minutes is still pretty burned into my brain.
Dude, like, can we yeah, I can also hear Tetsuo screaming Kaneda. Kaneda! Kaneda! Tetsuo! God, it's so good. Like, okay, it took me a second to wrap my head around, because it had been a while, and I think I was overcomplicating the plot in my head. It's actually a very straightforward plot, but the fact that, like, this movie is about, like, the potential of energy to create infinite energy that exists within all of us is, first of all, just an incredible metaphor for life. But also the ending blew my mind. I actually had to, just to make sure that I was interpreting the ending right, I hopped on, gave it a Goog, and read a plot synopsis, and I was like, that's right. But the plot synopsis puts it in a very blunt way. The plot synopsis says, I think the last line of the plot synopsis is simply, sorry, the dog stole one of the cat's toys, in case you're wondering why we're snapping and being distracted. The last line of the synopsis is, Tetsuo becomes a Big Bang. It's like this happens, Kaneda escapes safely, Tetsuo becomes a Big Bang. I was like, okay, so I interpreted that right. It's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
What a movie. And, I'm not usually... I try not to fall into the trap of like getting more excited about the technology than the movie itself, but I will say that I've never had a 4K TV before, and these Blu-rays of hand-drawn animation, I've never seen them look this good. I watched this Blu-ray copy of Akira, and it was gorgeous, especially those wide shots of Neo Tokyo, and such world building. What an incredible movie.
Yeah.
I really felt nice also in the Japan tip to kind of, since we did Interstellar 5555, to do Akira that's, kind of the opposite style of anime, not like a music video, concert film. Mm-hmm. Anyway, just such good shit. Okay, here, at this point, I think we've kind of touched on what everyone's watched. So before we get into what we watched, so much context, so much... It's so rich. It really is. And I think that's kind of a strangely, like, I don't want to say lost art, but I do think that in our current era of rushing things into like bingeable formats, there is something to be said for movies that just take a half hour just to kind of let you hang out in a beautiful new space.
Yeah.
Okay. This came up in a video group that I am in on Facebook. That group, actually, very serendipitously, I didn't even tell you this, but the VHS Vagrants group I'm in on Facebook, very serendipitously is calling April Asian Cinema April.
Really?
Right. So I didn't know that. We'd already been doing Japanese here. And so a lot of people were saying, like, are already having this conversation specifically about anime. And so let's bring in our question, okay? I want to hear from whoever's watching in the chat, as well as you. What is your favorite Japanese animated feature? Not a, if you want to recommend a show, go for it. But I know that the, like, wealth of anime shows is thousands and thousands of things. But what about standalone films? So I love Akira.
Yeah.
I don't think it's my number one, though. I'm curious to see what people think.
Interesting. Are you feeling like sharing now, or are you gonna like let it lie for a minute?
No, I'll share. I mean, I'm not like, it's not like a mystery. Yes, Ghost in the Shell, absolutely. Have you seen Ghost in the Shell?
Well, no.
We gotta watch. In fact, shit, I probably should upgrade Ghost in the Shell because I have a DVD of it floating around somewhere. Ghost in the Shell is fantastic. Predates The Matrix very heavily. Huge influence. The ghost being the soul, the shell being a cyborg machine body.
Ooh.
Being able to move your consciousness around. Macross Plus, I know, is a real fan favorite. People love that movie. I've never seen it. That and Battle Station, Spaceship. I'm going to get the title wrong. There's an epic space exploration, Royal Spaceship Yamato, I think. Probably getting that wrong. From the 80s that I really want to watch.
I think Wedge and I are on the same page here. I feel like Akira would have to be mine, but at the same time, I don't have, a plethora of features that come top of mind.
That's fair. That's fair. It's weird. Again, like, anime also weirdly becomes one of those things that kind of just is like, you're either a fan of anime or you're not. I think Space Battleship Yamato. Thank you. Hey, I got the proper noun right. I want to watch it very much so, too. I think it's weird. It becomes one of those things that, like, they're very dedicated fans, like otaku, who obsess over it and know everything about it. And then there are people who kind of ignore it entirely. I've always kind of just tried to dabble and treat it like other movies, but as a result, I've pretty much only seen the hits. I don't have a super deep wealth of knowledge for anime. I will say, if I'm picking one that I think is too slept on that should be watched, it would be Paprika. I think Paprika's wonderful.
Yeah.
I got it right here, actually. Where'd you go, Paprika? You were right there. Well, geez. I lost my copy of Paprika, everybody. Well, geez, I really did. Oh, here it is. Just because it's got beautiful cover art. Paprika is Satoshi Kon.
Oh, wow. Can I see that?
Yeah. That's an amazing movie. And if you... I'm going to be like a basic-ass hater here, but part of the reason I had a hard time enjoying Inception was because I'd already seen Paprika. They get compared all the time. People fight about it. They're like, no, it's an inspiration. I agree that all art is theft, and that's great and dandy and fine. Inspiration is inspiration. Paprika is about walking in other people's dreams as a secret agent, as a dream agent. But it's bright, colorful anime, and I think because Inception was the same idea, but just dudes in suits with guns, I'm just like, hey man, it's a dream. Is this all we can really dream? This movie's incredible.
This is definitely one that I remember having on my mental short list, and then just forgetting.
Leave it out.
Let's leave it out.
Okay, my favorite anime, though, my favorite anime feature will always and forever be Princess Mononoke. I love it. It's got a fantastic environmentalist plot. It's my favorite Studio Ghibli. It's my favorite Miyazaki. It's a very complex movie that you can watch as a kid or an adult. I saw it in theater when it was released in the U.S. With the dubbing. I saw it in 1997 in theater when I was 13. I fell in love with it. In fact, my first experience doing web design was creating a GeoCities fan page for Princess Mononoke.
Okay.
Huge fan of it. Seen it very many times.
I gotta be honest, Studio Ghibli is a huge closed window for me.
I like closed window.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Thank you.
We're trying not to say blind spot.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think, like, when did Studio Ghibli really start getting going?
So
like early
Studio Ghibli, I believe,
2000s?
has been active since the 70s.
I mean, like, the Studio Ghibli that we know.
Okay, well, in Japan, I think they were booming in the 80s through the 90s, but I would say that Princess Mononoke is really the big thing that... Oh, no, I'm sorry. My Neighbor Totoro in the 80s. My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service.
That's right.
And then Princess Mononoke, and then Spirited Away. That was after Disney started distributing them, and once Disney got behind them as a distributor, they became mainstream.
There you go. That's what I'm thinking. I think for whatever reason, I was not exactly avoidant of anime, but I just never... It took me a really long time to get into it, and I think Studio Ghibli is, unfortunately, a casualty of that.
Well, I have been... Shout Factory has been putting out steelbooks of the entire Studio Ghibli catalog, and I discovered they were doing that very early on, and so they announce a few new titles every few months. I pre-order them. It's like, honestly, it's like a $20 a month subscription at this point, and then they arrive. So we have almost the full catalog, and I've only seen about 4 of them because I'm waiting to do a Studio Ghibli week on the show where we really dive in and talk about it.
I love that. I think that's great. I mean, I've had lots of friends who are very into Studio Ghibli. I had a good friend of mine who is an animator, an artist, cartoonist, does a lot of beautiful drawings, and she was obsessed with Studio Ghibli, and always tried to convince me to watch it, and I just never did.
Yeah.
Just one of those things where you're like, I'll do it.
Have you seen Spirited Away? So we'll start with Spirited Away, which I think you will probably very quickly become one of your favorite things you've ever watched, because it's I think Spirited Away easily cracks the top 100 movies ever made. I think you will love it. I think it's a great spot to start from, and it also it's just cooked and filled to the brim with Japanese mythology and lore in a super interesting way. Quickly hitting up the chat. Great job, nerds, is Akira. Shout out Akira, a absolutely great favorite anime to have.
I think that's 3 ticks now.
3 ticks, yeah. Wedge, nerds, and Steph, all with Akira in their one spot. Macross Plus, Jinro the Wolf Brigade, Ghost in the Shell, Princess Mononoke, The Cat Returns. Those are both Ghibli. Akira, Ninja Scroll, Metropolis, which I never seen. I need to. Little Nemo and Perfect Blue. Perfect Blue is the same director as Paprika. And then Vineet saying Grave of the Fireflies, and that might be too deep of a cut. I don't think it's too deep of a cut. But I do agree with what Pathos says. Grave of the Fireflies is good, but you got to be prepared for it. So Grave of the Fireflies is one of my favorite movies as well. Ugh, just the cover hurts. Here you go. So this is a Ghibli movie. Grave of the Fireflies was produced by Studio Ghibli, but it was not, the distribution rights were not given to the same company, so you might see it packaged differently, but it is Ghibli. This is a movie about a 10-year-old and his 4-year-old little sister who are riding trains across Japan in the wake of Hiroshima, succumbing to radiation poisoning. And it is a really hard movie to watch. Like, I'm getting a little, trying to not get choked up on the stream, because it'll hit you. It's a gutting movie. I think Roger Ebert referred to it as one of the finest anti-war films ever made.
Oof. I'm getting chills, and I've never seen it.
It is fantastic. I would love to watch it, but you're going to need to come into it with some emotional fortitude. We've been watching 6 Feet Under, so maybe not the best time to also watch that. 'Cause 6 Feet Under, makes you so, needs out all of your vulnerability. I feel like I'm just a sponge at this point.
Yeah. I was just thinking about last night watching Vengeance is Mine and then watching 6 Feet.
Right? A lot of death in what we've been watching.
A lot of death lately. Well, once you rewatch Sex and the City, you just gotta pivot hard.
If Sex and the City is about life at its most, I feel like Sex and the City is about starting with the sprinkles and the icing, and then being like, oh, "There's a cake here," and then 6 Feet Under is like, "God, these cakes are fucking hard to bake. Oh my God, this takes forever. Oh my God, do we get to add icing to this at some point?"
That's a good point. I have honestly noticed a lot of similar plot points in 6 Feet Under. align pretty perfectly with Sex and the City.
Really?
Yeah. I got to stew on that a little bit, but I wonder if it's more of the era, because Sex and the City premiered in 98 and 6 Feet premiered in 2001.
Yeah, 6 Feet premiered I think a month after 9/11.
Wow.
So in many ways, I do feel that 6 Feet suffered for that because people didn't want something maybe that heavy. But I also think that it's that show as a whole is kind of this grand. I'm so emotional about 6 Feet Under. It's kind of this grand act of kindness to the world. 6 Feet Under is a show being a friend that hugs you when you're sad. Really, I do think of that show as it being hey, we're all gonna die and that's okay. Let's talk about it.
I think that's really important.
Me too. I was saying to Steph I'm a Buffy stan all day long my whole life, but I think 6 Feet Under on this rewatch is giving it a run for its money at the old favorite show of mine test. By the way, the dog has her head in the cat box.
Oh, hey,
dog. So the cat's this that's so gross.
Oh my god.
So speaking of life and grossness and cupcakes, get that nasty shit away from me, dog. Get away. Go.
Hey y'all,
remember
remember the Christmas mouse?
Go lay down. Go lay down.
That was a lot cuter of a surprise. Just as
go
jarring.
Lay down. Oh, you're gonna go lay down. Lick that off. She has cat litter all over her little wet nose.
Oh my god.
You go deal with that, sugar. No. You go get some water. Think about your choices, okay?
Look at your life. Look at your choices.
Look at what you've become.
I will mount a mirror at your eye level so you can stare into it for as long as you need to.
Payto says, doggy found treasure. Go back. We don't want this. We don't want that energy, girl. You entertain yourself for a second now. Okay, well, if anyone else, thank you for participating in the What's Your Favorite Anime. I love this Q&A thing we're doing. Gotta let it happen organically. Okay, Stephanie.
Yes.
You just drew a breath to say something, and then I said, okay, Stephanie.
Oh, I was going to say before the whole situation. It's weird because a thought popped into my head, and then I thought, do I really think that? And that thought was, Buffy strikes me as a little more cynical, and 6 Feet strikes me as a little more humanist, and I think a lot of times people swap those. But then I was like, is that fair?
I think they both honestly have a similar vibe of life is shit, look for the joy.
Yeah.
I think 6 Feet tries to encourage you to see the joy more often. I think Buffy definitely is life's hard.
Yeah.
In a different way. It's interesting because it is so poppy.
Yeah.
It reminds me, you're looking at it that way, it reminds me of a long time ago I had a friend who had not watched Buffy, who was starting True Blood, and he was and I'd seen a little True Blood and I just didn't care for it that much. And he was yeah, it's the adult Buffy.
No,
I was hold on. No. You know what teenagers do? They drop swear words and think nudity and gore makes them more adult. You know what adults do? Not rely on those things. So actually, Buffy's the adult True Blood, my friend.
I would have to agree with that. I watched the first season of True Blood, and I think that's probably now, in line with our rules. I have not seen the rest, so I can't say one way or the other. I would imagine that season 1 was its peak. Maybe season 2.
I know that it's got huge fans, but people talk about it falling off hard.
Interesting. A lot of shows do that. I think that's why the ones that don't are so deeply beloved by their fans.
That's also, good point. That's also in an era where, the way American shows were being ordered was much more demanding. Give us 20 more episodes of this.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel outlets, especially outlets like Netflix and HBO, work a lot more with creators to not demand story that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of shows in that era have great first 2 or 3 seasons, and then they're the people at the network are and they're we told our story, okay?
Yeah. Great Job Nerds is saying 1 season of True Blood is enough.
Okay, fair enough, bud.
I'm curious, the hour-long serialized dramedy. What do you think the first is?
Oh my god, I don't know TV history well enough.
If you were to say, okay, this is the thing that really got that ball rolling.
In the modern era? Not first of all time to do it. Because
No.
there's definitely The Prisoner in the 60s.
I'm talking about the modern era,
Yeah.
I guess that would be 90s.
Yeah, like the modern TV, like coming into the, serialized dramedy. I mean, I always say, if you're talking about like the invention of the modern age of television, it's going to be X-Files and Buffy. Mm-hmm. But that said, there's also like Dynasty that was huge in the 80s, which was like an hour-long soap opera that everyone tuned into.
Yeah, I think Dynasty's different. I'm thinking more so of that I guess it is like a very 90s sensibility, that sort of like tongue-in-cheek, like almost winking at the audience, but it's still dramatic, but sometimes it's like melodramatic.
That's Buffy. That's Buffy's influence.
Yeah.
I know the man's an asshole, but that's Joss Whedon's influence. Yeah. That's what he did with Roseanne and Toy Story.
Yeah.
It's hey, this is fun, but we're also aware of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Season 1 was really good, and I lost interest after that, so it's well,
Fair.
I guess I'm not far off.
Yeah, you had it. You had it pegged.
Well,
you got validation. What else did we watch this week, Stephanie?
We watched Demons.
Wait, hold on. What, do you want to get into Demons?
Oh, well.
I was going to go in order of what we watched. But whatever, fuck it. Why does it matter?
No, let's go in
Demons
order.
is great.
Let's go in order.
Well, there are 2 that we're streaming. So I've got a stack of what we watched here. These top 2 being, or, you know what we watched. But there's 2 that, one I watched on streaming that I know a few other people did, and one that we watched on streaming the night last Tuesday, a week ago, that you were like, we put it on at like 1 a.m.
Oh my god. Wait, was that last week?
It was last week, yeah.
Are you talking about Lake Catfish?
I'm talking about Lake Catfish. That's right. So, y'all, we watched Catfish.
We had a real wild hair at 1 a.m.
A wild herring.
No, that was good. I'm mad that was good.
My wife.
Yeah, a real wild herring, if you will, and randomly popped on Catfish at 1 a.m.
Which I'd never seen. And circling back to earlier tonight, talking about movies that friends in college told me I didn't need to worry about seeing, this was the case. I had friends in college when this movie was popping, because everyone saw that first Catfish trailer, right? And they cut it to look like a horror movie. They made it seem like these guys were in danger of their lives. And then that's what I was hyped for. And then a friend was like, oh, just about this sad lady. And I was like, oh, whatever, I'm an idiot, so I won't watch that. And, oh my god, what a fascinating character study this was.
I think it totally is. Pathos, I love fish sandwiches. I love a good fish sandwich.
Oh, wait. Isn't that Ladies Man? Can I offer you a fish sandwich?
Oh, maybe it is.
It's Tim Meadows.
Oh, wow.
Hey, can I offer you a fish sandwich?
Oh.
So you're a nun, huh? How long you been nunning it up?
Oh. I wish people could see how fast your tongue moved when you said
nunning it up. Nunning it up.
Okay, so I would argue that Catfish is, and I kind of soft pitched it to you.
Because go off, because it's like one of your favorites.
No, it's not. Oh my god. If
I'm
we
sorry.
had a penny.
If we had a penny.
Let's not make it a penny. If we had a $10 bill, because I'm broke, for every time Adam says something is my favorite, when it's absolutely just...
I'm sorry, I throw the word favorite around too much. It just means that you enthusiastically like it. Look, I'm sorry, does the person who watched every episode of the show Catfish and talk about how the movie's so great and such an interesting character study?
I didn't talk about how it was so great. It's not one of my favorites.
Okay.
I'm not... Look.
I thought it was amazing.
I do think it's great. It's just funny. You throw around the word favorite.
I'm sorry, I throw it around too much. I like to be hype. I like to be a superlative.
You do. And I like to be a realist.
Okay, well, there's a grounded relationship. So, sorry.
Okay, so anyways, the soft pitch I kind of gave you was like, yes, it is about this thing, but it's also about friends making a movie together, which is something I've always thought was interesting, because you can see, like, Neve is the subject of the film, but you can also see like how sometimes he's like excited by that, like almost like playing a role, like intentionally being a elevated version of himself, and then other times where you can see that he's like I they're asking him to like redo, like re-say what he said,
right.
Or like maybe the sound wasn't good or whatever. Like these guys are trying to make I would argue not a documentary. They were trying to make a movie.
Yeah, it
not
really...
That documentaries are not movies, but you know it, like a narrative feature.
it really does bring up, like, to your point, like, the reason I liked this movie, and I see that I definitely enjoyed the filmmaker part of it, and I want to get to that in a second. The reason that I overwhelmingly really liked this movie was because of its very human character examination of someone who is lonely and is looking for companionship in the main character, the woman who eventually becomes the main character, the catfisher. Mm-hmm. That said, to your point about it being a film about movies, I think this would make for a very interesting case study on, like, there's a lot to be said, and there's already been a lot written and discussed about documentaries and how they frame millions of words have been written on documentaries framing reality. We could go all the way back to Nanook of the North and 1920s fake-out documentaries. This one, however, feels like such a weird hybrid.
It does.
Like, it doesn't just seem like... It's not Nanook of the North. It's not someone who's just lying to you and who staged everything. But it's also not fucking Fly on the Wall either.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird in-between, and I think that has a lot to do with the subject matter, because it is of the era where this wasn't a known phenomenon, and where social media was so new, and connecting with people over social media, not just like, chat rooms, but like living lives online was so new. And there is that thing where you can invent an entire reality in your mind, which,
And you want to talk about cynicism? This movie is if you look at, we're all so cynical about the internet now. Mm-hmm. We all assume that that's a bot, that's a troll, that's a Russian account trying to hack our election. That's we have been so inundated. That's spam, that's an ad, that's my wish. I don't know why that's on there. Don't judge my browsing history. Mm-hmm. This was at a point in the internet when that cynicism really wasn't there. Like, exactly. Neve, as a main character, really is like trying to meet real people who he believes to be fully fleshed out real people. There is not, like, the naivety of it is the charm.
Yeah, and I also think that, well, first of all, yes, him being naive, but also so vulnerable in certain moments, like, so cringe when he is lying in bed with his retainer in and reading his, like, sexting.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
it's a different era.
You're like, oh, God.
It's not a WYD text. Mm-mm. It's like how thine eyes shine in the moonlight, my dear.
But the story within the story, like the depth of the universe, that like the number of accounts that were going, and computers, and or like keeping track of a lot of stuff.
I mean, I was impressed by her.
Yeah.
I was also like, that movie did a very good job, and I think that it's because I think honestly it's their youth. I think because of their youth and because of the state of the world at the time, they came into it with a very, like, non-judgmental point of view. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about, okay, when I was 17, and not to make this about me, when I was 17, I made a very short documentary on the Westboro Baptist Church. Very hateful people, very homophobic, Topeka-based, far-right church. And my friend and I made it together, and we drove down there, and we, like, went up to their property and ended up going on a ride-along and had our little digital camera and did a little documentary about them. And we knew that we vehemently disagreed with them, but we never let them know that. We always kind of we tried to be as non-judgmental. Now, looking back on it, of course I'm judgmental of them. Of course I was internally at the time. Mm-hmm. But I felt that I had some responsibility as a filmmaker to not color reality with what I wanted it to be. I figured I should trust my audience to know that these people are bad if you have a conscience.
Yeah.
Same with Catfish. It's like these young guys who are still so young and naive. They don't have an agenda. They're going to let reality represent itself. Mm-hmm. But in this case, rather than it being Westboro, it's actually a very pleasant, nice woman who seems like the bad guy but isn't.
Yeah.
Really just non-judgmental, open-minded filmmaking, and I thought that it really paid off for them.
Yeah, and the end is like, again, just being the beginning of that era where people start transitioning to living online. Mm-hmm. Like, you can see so deeply, like, how this escapism is her whole, like...
becomes reality.
For her. because the rest of her life is like serving everyone else. And her husband. Oh. Anyways.
Fascinating stuff. Wedge also agrees it's a good movie. Now, you had mentioned demons. Should we hop over to demons?
Let's hop over to demons.
So, if you have been watching along with us, by the way, just see we got some new watchers tonight. So, just to let you know, welcome to the video store. Feel free to jump in the chat if you have an opinion, if you want to share a recommendation based on what we're talking, if you want to share something you saw recently that you want other people to know about. Right now, we're in the portion of our show, which is What Did You Watch? So we're going through what we watched. After that, we're going to show some new arrivals and then move to Movie Club, where we're going to be talking about Vengeance is Mine from 1979. Mm-hmm. Okay, but for now, we watched Demons.
Yes.
I want to talk about reality and movies and representation of reality. This is a thick one to get into. First of all, shout out to Arrow for this frankly gorgeous box of Demons 1 and 2.
Maybe not the most functional.
Maybe not the most functional, but it is pretty.
But we do like the way it looks.
And okay, so we're going to be talking about, there's a lot in there. We're going to be talking about Demons, the first one. And here's your ticket to be invited. Here you go, Stephanie.
Oh my god.
You're going to go. Okay, so Demons. Let's get a little background on this movie first. Nice, I like that. A little background on Demons. Lamberto Bava, son of Mario Bava, who arguably created the Giallo movie and is the father of the what we think of as Italian horror. Mario Bava did things like Black Sunday, Blood and Black Lace, and then Dario Argento comes up slightly after him, and then Dario produces this movie directed by Mario's son, Lamberto. So Lamberto Bava, Demons 1 and 2 are the movies he's most known for. That kind of is where we're at. We are moved from the more formalist, horror, let me get my words straight. The more formalist classical horror filmmaking of the 60s that Bava represented. Then we are into kind of the freewheeling 70s and Argento. Things start to you get a lot of exploitation giallos. The genre kind of goes gangbusters in popularity, along with Polizzi movies and crime movies. And then in the 80s, now we're in we're kind of postmodern at this point. So Lamberto Bava's movie very much is about punk youth culture from the 80s. And it is about looking backwards at the history of Italian horror and seeing it represented in the real world through this device in which the film becomes reality and the film we're watching is hyper-reality of our world, etc., etc. This movie really folds in on itself. So not as elegant as Mario Bava's movies, but goddamn what a fun ride this one is. That's my context. It was a first-time watch for you.
It was a first-time watch for me. I have to say that, first of all, overall, I thought it was great. Such a fun movie. I feel like the first, maybe 30 minutes, I was, so completely and totally on board. For me, in the middle, it dipped a little bit as far as, it felt a little one note in the middle, but then picked me back at the end.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Even with the practical effects, I felt like the beginning it was giving us something new every moment, and then it's sort of very cool and obviously influential things happening, and maybe that's a cynical point of view because we're so.
I mean, I don't think so. I don't think you're being cynical. I think it's a valid criticism.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Because the beginning of the movie, when you first see those first few demon transformations, you're getting these close-ups on these mesmerizingly violent, gross close-ups of fingernail splitting, teeth splitting.
The teeth thing for me was
right? It's gross.
It's really gross, and it's done really well.
But then by the time you're halfway through the movie, the filmmakers are kind of doing a thing that a lot of horror filmmakers do that I think I always kind of feel a little bit remiss about, which is they give you the meat the first time, and then they kind of assume you know what's going on. They shortcut it.
Yeah.
So the rest of the transformations, while the first ones might be a full-on werewolf transformation sequence, and then the other ones are just going to be aha!
Yeah, which makes sense because we don't know the budge,
Yeah, we don't need to see it every time.
Yeah, but the thing that I really enjoyed was, which I mentioned to you after we watched it, we didn't talk too in depth about it, but the main guy, what's his name?
Oh, his name is Urbano. The actor's name is Urbano something. I know he looks a lot like Jensen Ackles.
Yeah. What is his character's name?
Mike, probably?
All right, we'll call him Mike. The thing I found enjoyable was how Mike, while everyone else is transforming into demons, Mike transforms into an action movie star. Mm-hmm. I mean...
Straight up.
Straight up. He's on a motorcycle with a sword.
It's George.
Mike, George, you know one, you know them all. He's climbing into a helicopter. He's like carabining. I don't know. He's like
got like a Batman like grappling hook action. Yeah, this dude's riding on a motorcycle with a samurai sword at the end of the movie, and he's totally a wimp. This is like kind of the greatest wimp to action badass transformation since Ash in the Evil Dead franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it felt very reminiscent of that.
And to the point about how, so the plot of this movie is a bunch of people get a free ticket to go see a movie. The movie is about demons taking over the world because someone wears a mask of a demon. Well, guess what? That mask is in the theater along with a motorcycle and a samurai sword. They are out front in the lobby. Someone wears the mask in the theater, and what happens on screen happens in real life.
It was weird. Oh, sorry.
No.
I feel like you were like gearing up to saying something, and then I just like interjected.
No, it's okay. That's the context. I just wanted to say, like, in as much as the movie is about the movie, so is George's transformation. As to your point, like, he is becoming an action movie archetype.
Yeah.
Which begs the question: who is the demonic force that organized all this?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And why did they provide the weapons of the hero?
Exactly. That was my question as well. Is they don't really explain who the guy in the Phantom mask is.
You know who that actor is?
Who is that?
The director of Stage Fright.
Really?
That's Michele Suavi.
Ooh, Stage Fright.
That's so good. Yeah, none of it's explained, and I did some googling to see if I could find anything on it, and it's really just like, it's just unexplained. That's the deal.
Yeah, because it's interesting. It seems like it's almost like the people there are curated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like, but then again, this movie also kind of is about the end of the world. Mm-hmm. I think Glowcat last time, or Pathos, I forget who said this, but someone said that Demons was like a zombie movie, but not.
It feels very much like a zombie movie. Especially in the sense that there is no escape. You think that every turn you're like, okay, that was it. Nope. Still going.
Yeah, it's, and in the sense that it's infectious.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also like Deus Ex Machina, like God shit happening. Like when they try to escape, the people in danger try to escape the theater early on. And one of my favorite, I just think is it's so existentially horrifying. My favorite bits of the whole movie is them opening the front doors to find a brick wall.
That's so scary. That scares me.
Yeah, me too. It's a scary concept.
Yeah.
But like that, where does that power come from? So we were joking afterwards that, like, you know, also think about Italy. Think about the fact that this is in Rome. There's a punk culture. There's kind of this like there is always going to be an element of Catholicism in anything that's coming out of Rome. Period. It's the seat of the Vatican. So I think that there is sort of like this like God versus the devil sort of work at play. Yeah. And it almost feels like God and the devil sat down and were like, you get this many people, and you have to provide the weapon that you kill them with.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It feels very like...
orchestrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is orchestrated by the people who made the movie. Mm-hmm. Because it's about movies. And so when watching it, we're asked to accept it as a reality, but also accept it as a movie that we are watching, which then in turn asks us to... invites us to say, well, what if the same thing happened to me?
Yeah. It's very meta.
It's meta on meta.
How scary is it? I don't think it's that scary.
I would say it's more like, have you ever seen Return of the Living Dead? I think this is what I would compare it to. Return of the Living Dead from the 80s, another very punk rock zombie movie. It's got some gross out effects. It's got some scary ideas, but none of it's going to really make you like, unable to sleep.
That's what I was going to say, is I feel like it's slightly unnerving in some of its concepts and visuals, but overall, I don't think that it's like a fractioning movie.
Yeah. This would make a really good, actually, Demons 1 and Demons 2 would make a very good double feature with Rec and Rec 2. If anyone hasn't seen Rec out there, we can get back to it. Maybe if we do a Spanish unit, or maybe if we, or Spain unit, or maybe if we, or maybe if we do it for Halloween. But Rec was remade in the States as Quarantine. Rec is named so like Record because it's all found footage. But it's about an apartment complex with an outbreak of something, zombies, demons. Mm-hmm. Really scary, but Demons 2 happens to take place in an apartment complex.
Uh-oh, here come the maters.
Uh-oh, mater time. Scary punk walk scary movies? Hey, if you want some scary punk walk scary movies, Return of the Living Dead 1 and 2, Demons 1 and 2, Blood Roses, or, yeah, not Blood Roses, Black Roses, Rock and Roll Nightmare.
Yep.
There's a lot of, like, zombie monster...
We're also getting some love for Rec in the chat here. I would agree that Rec is scary.
Yeah. When I...
Talk about unnerving.
That honestly, like...
Gulp.
I feel very desensitized to most horror cinema, but when people ask me what is you want to watch a movie that really scares you, watch Rec or the original Rec in the Dark by yourself, or watch Nosferatu, the original In the Dark by yourself. They will both make you super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Never saw Quarantine, Wedge. Rocktober Blood, that's another good one. What up, Munson? Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Rocktober Blood. Yeah, there's a lot of rock and roll horror movies out there. Mm-hmm. Two communities very much went hand in hand, especially in the 80s.
For sure.
Listen to the soundtracks, guys.
Listen to the soundtracks, guys.
And then I love how that kind of continued into the 90s, except the soundtracks got super, like, nu metal-y.
Yeah.
So, like, all the end of the 90s horror movies all had, like, and by the soundtrack, now available, featuring Stained, Puddle of Mud, Your Grandma's Butt.
God, I love that band.
Featuring the hit song Dying Inside by Stabbing Westward. Rec is so good. Rec 2 is also fantastic.
I have not seen Rec 2.
Rec 2 gives a little bit more, not to spoil anything, but there's a reason that the demons would be a good, like, Rec 2 kind of makes it a little bit more explained in a way that I think is scarier than just their zombies. Gets a little more world building, I suppose. Yeah. Teen Wolf, a rock and roll horror movie? I don't know, Wedge. I think Teen Wolf is too much, I think Teen Wolf is like the U2 of it, you know, like the U2 or the...
Coldplay?
The Coldplay. Yeah, I love Teen Wolf, but I do not think it has
Dave
enough
Matthews
edge to be...
Who's the Dave Matthews Band of rock and roll horror movies?
Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf 2 is the DMB.
They're just jamming
with
for
Jason
way too
Bateman.
long. No.
Yeah, exactly. No, you know what, actually? This would be Full Moon High, which is a pretty bad movie, but it's Larry Cohen, and it's actually a parody of stuff like Teen Wolf. No, it beat Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf ripped this off. It's a parody of Wolfman movies, because Larry Cohen loves to satirize the genres he grew up with. Anyway, it's a fun one.
Let's check out the chat. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I remember loving it, though. Teen Wolf, I imagine, is what we're talking about. Also, yes, same here. Long time since I've seen it, but I do remember. I mean, who doesn't?
It's fun.
Who doesn't love that? Are You Afraid of the Dark was the scariest shit ever. The scariest shit ever. Mm-hmm. I have to agree that it was really scary.
Yeah, it's a great show.
It's a great show. Probably too scary.
I could probably go find that. I'm going to go find that issue of that comic book I have.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think I got it laying around. Real quick, great job, nerds. Rocky Horror. I think that's an excellent point in terms of, like, building in the rock and roll alt culture starting to blend with horror. I would say the two biggest things there would be Rocky Horror and I'm not going to be able to grab it yet. Phantom of the Paradise, Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise from the 70s with Paul Williams. I think those two movies really set off the course of what would be like the rock and roll horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be right back.
All right, so UltraLoop in the chat saying that the kids turning into dogs. Yeah, okay. Which Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes scared you? I gotta say, yeah, that one's scary. One that always sticks out in my mind is the toy store that's like in an abandoned warehouse, and there's actually like aliens living under the floor. They kind of look like putties from Power Rangers. Is this ringing a bell for anyone? One episode, Are You Afraid of the Dark, where the gory corpse of the high school swimming pool was actually terrifying. Yes! That one's really scary. Also, the one with the, like, beauty potion with the witch in the pop-up tent, like at a farmer's market. It's not really a farmer's market. We all know that. Oh, great job, nerds. Erie, Indiana. I was really into that show as well. That is... Who's the main actor? The main... I gotta look this up because I feel like Erie... you know that song Gary, Indiana? I used to always sing Erie, Indiana instead of Gary, Indiana from Music Man. Erie, Indiana, Erie, Indiana, Erie, Indiana. I probably just butchered that. Jason Marsden? Is that who it was? Who was like the main kid? Thackeray Banks in Hocus Pocus. That's right. Anyways, let's see what we got going on. Any other scary episodes? Scary Funhouse 1. Scary Funhouse 1, yes. Drunk actor in the beginning.
Couldn't find it, y'all. Oh, wait. I bet it's... Oh, my God. It's going to be right here, isn't it? No, it's not. Anyway, the best episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark is the Gastly Grinner.
Oh, it's so good.
And I have a comic book of it.
It's not in there?
Maybe it is.
I wouldn't say that Gastly Grinner is one of the
Too packed.
Scariest.
I think it's scary.
I think it's like very disturbing.
When the bus driver turns around?
Yeah, that is pretty...
Come on.
That's pretty fucked.
Also the virus. The virus with the...
The computers?
The computer. The kid gets stuck in the school.
Ooh.
And the one that scared me the most was the girl who discovers the dollhouse, and then at the end she turns around, she's inside the dollhouse.
Oh, I hate that. No.
We really got put through the existential ringer in our youths.
We did with
Goosebumps.
that and Goosebumps and Scary Stories.
Yeah.
And no supervision.
I think that we could talk about that all day and just be total millennials about it, but I do think that I'm grateful for all the weird macabre stuff that we were exposed to.
Yeah, I am too. I think I remember the beach house one. Is that one where there's like a room with drawings on the walls, or I don't know. There's so many. Black Mirror Jr. That's
drawings
funny.
on the wall. Yeah, for sure. Any final thoughts on Demons?
No.
It's a rock and roll badass horror movie. I can't wait to watch Demons 2.
I'm very excited to watch Demons 2.
Asia Argento is in Demons 2. Dario's daughter.
I'm excited. No spoilies, but the end of Demons... Are they connected?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, well, the end of Demons had me excited to pop on Demons 2.
Yeah. I think that it's connected in the sense that, both things are happening, but maybe not, at the exact same time. Mm-hmm. You know?
Existing in the same...
Oh, y'all, can I tell you, if you haven't seen Rec 2, can I tell you the ultimate pitch to see Rec 2?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rec is this news reporter who goes into an apartment building and ends up sealed inside and quarantined with everyone in the apartment building as a zombie outbreak happens. And you see everything through the news reporter's camera because it is the only camera in there. At the end of Rec, that camera goes out. You hear as Rec 1 ends, you hear sirens in the background of police coming to get inside, and they say the SWAT team's on the way. Rec 2 begins. Well, I'm sorry, I gotta tell you how Rec 2. I'm not saying it's not a spoiler. There's police all throughout Rec, but you basically like hear something about a SWAT team near the end. Rec 2 opens with the body cam on a SWAT team member in the car pulling up seconds after the first one's over.
Ooh.
And then that's your point of view.
Ooh.
It's really
Juicy.
good. It's a really cool concept.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I really like that. I really like when there's like a horror or a horror adjacent that has like some kind of fresh perspective.
Because in Rec 2 is like everything you just saw just happened in this building, and now we're going into it.
Yeah. What did we just watch that happened? Oh, right. What did we just watch? Where it's like happening in real time?
Well, I've
2
got.
weeks ago?
Oh, I don't know.
What, 2 weeks ago? I'll think of it.
Yeah, we'll think about it. I can look. Right here, I actually have this note pulled up. Here, let's see. Bad Trip.
Oh, Falling Down.
Falling Down. That's right. That's right.
I was just trying to think of other movies that like either connect, like whether it's a sequel or the way that the movie unfolds, that connect real-time things happening from different perspectives, or
maybe we should watch Ron or Rashomon.
Oh, Rashomon would be good.
Yeah, that could be a potential. I've never seen Rashomon.
You haven't?
No.
Oh wow. Well then, yeah, that should be on the short list for sure. Because
Cause
especially after watching Vengeance Is Mine.
Yeah, I mean, getting into the more Japanese stuff. Although I'm keeping this one out for later. Minari. So you're mentioning 2 movies that I have not seen. Have you seen either of these, Stephanie? Minari or Triple Threat?
Mm-mm.
And Hannibal finished season 2 started. Wait.
Oh, Nomadland is something that I have been wanting to watch.
Just add it to the short list.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Triple Threat and Minari? Great job, nerds. Thank you for sharing what you watched. If you're just joining us, please feel free to follow this example. We want to hear what you watched. While you are sharing that, let's hop over on one thing we watched, which was Easter Sunday's pick. Critters 2, the main course.
An Easter movie.
It is an Easter movie. It takes place on Easter. Actually watched this because I saw Glowcat post that they were watching it for Easter, and I was like, oh right. So this was your first Critters movie.
It was. And I said, do I need to see do I need to have seen Critters to appreciate Critters 2? I did, it was pretty easy to fill in the blanks. I gotta say, after we finished watching this movie, I think we both had the same exact feeling of structurally, that movie was, and pacing, that movie was pretty perfect.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's like a sleeper. You're
Yeah.
like, wait, was that a banger? Was that actually like a really solid movie? Because the answer is yes.
100%. Like, Critters 2 gets a total recommendation for me if you want something poppy and a poppy, fun, not too scary movie.
Me too. Which is, they're scary.
It's also PG-13. Well, they're scary, but they're goofy.
Yeah, but they're scary.
This is a PG-13 movie, as are all the Critters movies. So this is actually one that I rented a lot as a kid. I rented the tapes of the Critters franchise a lot. Usually all 4 at once. And then would watch them all 4 in a row. And
wow.
They are just like... Because I was always interested in horror, but I wasn't allowed to rent R movies. So I would go for Critters. So I've seen these a million times, but I totally had very vague memories of Critters 2. Probably hadn't watched it in like 20 years. Truly what you said, like, is this a banger? Yes, it is. Critters 2 is awesome.
Yeah.
Really highly recommended. Really fun effects, super scary, and like you said, the script is so tight.
The script is so tight. It's like a masterclass on how to get your story out efficiently, and like exposition is just like perfectly built in. Like you're just like, oh, okay.
Yes. Not only that, but the number of fun sci-fi ideas that kind of act as runners through it. Mm-hmm. Like, it's almost like structured like a really good comedy show. Yeah. Because it has all these main, like, you're showing up, like, the belly laughs are the critters, like, you're looking for the monsters and for the violence. But then it's got, like, a side plot about an alien bounty hunter trying to decide on a face to wear, and he keeps, like, morphing his face to be different people. Yeah. Anyway, shout out to Shout Factory for putting out this nice Critters Blu-ray set too that I like to refer to as the Criterion Collection.
Yeah, also at the end, until the reveal, I was thinking, okay, Independence Day.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I was like, that is the exact plot of the end of Independence Day. It's like this former drunk pilot guy who becomes a hero through sacrificing, becoming like a kamikaze.
Mm-hmm. Hey boys, I'm back.
And yes, and I think the guy, well, I don't remember what he says, but he does the exact same thing of like being like, yeehaw, or whatever. I don't know.
He says, I am a bounty hunter.
I'm a bounty hunter. That's what he says.
God, very fun. Great job, nerds. Agrees it is insanely good. Okay, thank you. And Munson's Critters 2 is perfect. Watch The Last Temptation of Christ over the weekend on GVK. Munson, you and I are synced up tonight. Critters 2, yes. This movie's so awesome.
Yeah.
Last Temptation of Christ, we actually started tonight's stream asking if people watched any Bible movies this weekend. Last Temptation of Christ, we went into a little earlier. My favorite Bible adaptation, period.
Yeah.
And, okay, Triple Threat was an action and stunts movie. Scott Adkins, Michael J. White. Gotta love Michael J. White. Oh, with Tony Jaa? Okay. Triple Threat. That does sound like a triple threat. That sounds very fun. Okay, I'm going to check that out. Well, if you want to share any thoughts on Minari or Nomadland, I am not very familiar with those. Would be happy to talk about them or hear more. But you're kind of... Munson just gave me a really good segue because the other movie I watched by myself that I'm sure you also... I know you watched, great job, nerds, is Godzilla vs. Kong. So I'd love to hear what y'all thought about Godzilla vs. Kong. Here's my quick take, okay?
I'm going to take a quick 2 while you dive into that.
Because I stayed up late watching it. She did not watch it. Okay, so Godzilla vs. Kong I thought was super duper fun. Adam Wingard is clearly a very talented director. I loved Your Next back in the day, his debut. Godzilla vs. Kong, I think with all of these new Godzilla, all these new kaiju monsterverse movies, I think what really I have to like kind of go in with a new set of expectations. I'm a huge fan of the original Godzilla movies. I am a huge fan of King Kong, the original. And it's weird at this point. I feel like I've watched so many of those old kaiju movies that when I see CG kaiju, I find it to be more of a reveal that it's fake than Men in Suits is. I know that's a really that sounds like an old head dumbass opinion, but I do think I really respond to those old Godzilla suits. Now, that being said, it's not like a deal breaker for me. I can invest and have fun, and I did. The CG was fantastic. The Kong characterization, I don't want to give anything away for those who haven't watched it yet, but some of the new things they added to Kong's character I thought were really lovely. And I thought that Godzilla was fun. The fights were fun. I'm going to be honest, big CG fights always kind of make me feel a little sleepy. One other thing I've always loved about Godzilla movies is the element of humans solving problems using science, and of kind of different political, social political meanings being buried there. Whereas this one very much just kind of felt like kind of what I think all American Godzilla movies do, which is they're people like these movies because it's big monsters fighting, right? And I think they kind of missed the point of why the original movies work so much. So I did tune out a little bit, especially during the big fights. That said, wonderful effects, some really cool stuff done with Kong, a very solid watch, very enjoyable watch. I would recommend this if you're looking for popcorn fun. And let us know if you just saw our camera scooch a little bit as the cat headbutted it.
If you see a scoocher, you hear a pitter-patter, a little pause, that's our animals making the rounds right now, because it's an hour before their dinner time.
That's right.
They're getting restless.
Great job, nerds. Minari's a family drama. Loved it. Beautiful performances. I might be in the... That sounds like the anti-con, which I kind of need. GVK was fine. Went in to see Mechagodzilla and it delivered, but no point was I saying whoa to any of the visuals. None of the hits felt hard. And Wedge said unpopular opinion, but he loved Godzilla 2014. I remember not liking Godzilla 2014, but it's been a while. I think that I was overhyped on it. Went in with the wrong expectations. I probably owe it a rewatch. So I'm not unpopular in my book. I think I just need to select D, not enough information to answer at this point. Mechagodzilla was super fun in GVK, but I'm sorry, y'all. That character design did not compete with the original Mechagodzilla design. It looked a little too skeletal to me. That being said, thought it was really cool to see. Yeah, I think fine is a way to put it. We've talked about on this show before how, like, sometimes the internet pressures us into feeling like we need to have strong opinions about things, for better or for worse. And I think Godzilla vs. Kong was a movie that I saw, and I was like, "Yep, that was a fun movie. I'll forget about in a couple months."
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't see it. I don't know why I said like I was agreeing.
But Munson, you also watched it. If you had a different opinion, let us know. Cool. Real quick before we dive into
New arrivals.
Right? Did we get everything we watched together?
I think we did.
All right. So here's the only other thing I watched on my own. Really happy to have finally found a copy of this. This movie is called, let's get the light reflecting the right way, Death of a Bureaucrat. Now, this is a Cuban movie from the 60s, 1966 to be exact, directed by Tomás Gutiérrez Alea. And Tomás Gutiérrez Alea is the new wave guy of Cuban independent or art cinema. So it's really like unfortunately, Cuban cinema is not well known in the States, and Tomás Gutiérrez Alea is really like the father of it in many ways. I'd only ever seen one of his movies before this, and I actually have ordered another one of his movies after this because I think he's one of my favorite filmmakers based on my small sample size of 2 movies. The other movie is called Memories of Underdevelopment. Memories of Underdevelopment is an autobiographical story about growing up during the Cuban Revolution and the changes that happened. Death of a Bureaucrat is a straight-up comedy. It was also fun to watch this while watching 6 Feet. Death of a Bureaucrat is about a guy, normal dude in his 20s, whose uncle dies. His uncle was a proud worker. Watch that. Don't mess that tripod up, buddy. His uncle was a proud worker for the state who has a worker ID card that he, as an honorarium, is buried with. Well, it turns out that they need that card to authorize the alimony for his widow, and so they have to dig his body up, but then they dig the body up, and then the funeral says we can't bury him because there was no exhuming order, so you need to go get the anyway. It's a comedy about red tape in trying to get a relative buried, where a dead body sits in ice for most of the movie, and a kid runs around town. Very Brazil energy, very Buñuel energy, very very Charlie Chaplin modern times sort of energy. Like, definitely just a satire of the bureaucratic red tape of trying to get something done. Really interesting in that it's poking fun at the red tape of a socialized country, while also celebrating the fact that it's a socialized country, but also kind of letting... I was trying to read about it because there's not much said on this movie because it's unfortunately very hard to find. And I saw someone say that it was like inviting the bureaucrats to laugh at themselves. Overall, it's an 85-minute slapstick comedy about trying to get a relative buried, directed by a guy who made political comedies in Cuba in the 60s. It's fantastic. I don't know where you can stream it. I'm going to be real. I spent $60 on this tape because it's not available anywhere but on VHS, and I wanted to see it so badly, and it was worth it. So I do recommend it if you can find it. Death of a Bureaucrat. Oh, you know what? I found it. There's a YouTube upload. You can watch it. That's right. I just wanted a physical copy of it. So before Criterion eventually gets to it, I bought it on tape, but it's out there. If you want to find it, Death of a Bureaucrat, you can find it on YouTube or Vimeo. All right. And Munson, yes, Buñuel energy for sure. It's very much like just making fun of the status quo and the difficulty of living life in the modern world. Munson, I think solid popcorn cinema is a really good way to put it. Skull Island is... It's weird because I know Skull Island is part of the Monsterverse, but for me, it like very much stands alone as just a really fun King Kong movie about Vietnam and PTSD. And I need to watch Godzilla 2014 still. Did not see King of the Monsters yet. So, interesting rankings there. Cool. All right.
All right. We got one more.
I feel you, Wedge. Yeah. Skull Island's sense of scale is pretty killer too.
I'd agree with that.
Well, dang. Okay. Well, I will rewatch Godzilla 2014 then, because I definitely sounds like this is really an expectations issue for me. So I'll go in blank. I'll be honest with how I feel once I get to it. Did you ever see it?
I think I saw that in theaters.
Yeah,
but
me too.
That was it.
Elizabeth Olsen before she really took off in the Marvelverse.
Oh.
One of her first big roles.
Uh-huh.
Actually, I think I remember people being like, "Is that an Olsen?
Oh.
She looks like MKNA." Look at you, get all nostalgic and warm.
We love it.
Prepare to be disappointed again, says Great Job Nerds. But we all know that outside of the Showa era of original Godzilla movies, there is only one GOAT, and that is Shin Godzilla.
Ooh, so good.
Stand for eternally. I love the fact that, like, for those who don't know, Wedge and Great Job Nerds are friends IRL, and so I love seeing stuff in the chat that I can tell is them poking each other for a disagreement they've definitely talked about. Like, I definitely do to Great Job Nerds sometimes, too. Nothing compares to you. Nothing compares to Shin Godzilla. You. Or you. Okay, well, that's what we watched. Would anyone like any fun? Does anyone want a recommendation, or you just want to move on to new arrivals?
Yeah, if anyone has any other thing that they want to throw on the pile of what they watched, or looking for a rec based on what you watched, or... That was not the Christmas mouse, by the way.
No, it's a fictional mouse.
For our regulars, it's a fictional mouse.
Stuffed mouse, fictional.
This is my fictional
Did
mouse.
you guys know the Christmas mouse died tragically?
Oh my god! No, we told the story about
Yeah, we
Christmas
did. We don't
mouse.
need to tell them.
We don't need to...
God, that sucked. I felt like I fed him to a cat.
Ugh.
I caught him so gingerly and then took him outside and set him loose, and he took about 3 steps before one of the stray cats in the neighborhood just...
It was like
It's like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looney Tunes.
I want to get a little, I don't want another beer. I want one of your sparkling waters.
Yes,
it looks tasty.
please.
So I'm going to grab one.
You know, speaking of sparkling waters.
Oh, you miss your Maya well?
I miss my Maya well, y'all. Maya well was an Austin thing. My ginger hibiscus Maya wells, you know, it's a maybe. I'm missing them out here, but you can get them delivered, I think, shipped, but that's an expensive case of drink. So, still thinking about it, even though it's almost my birthday. Which, by the way, open call for submissions tonight of my birthday's in 4 days, I think. I'm going to be, I don't know. And we are not vaxxed, and we are still quarantining. So, please let me know if you have any fun ideas for birthday celebrations, safe, COVID safe, or movies to watch that feel birthday-ly. Oh, the Jackal! The Jackal. Some of the dog parks saw the Jackal.
I want to watch The Jackal again. I grew up on that movie.
I do too. Same.
I used to watch that all the time. I want to watch Day of the Jackal too, the original.
Thank you. I can't quite read the name from here.
Munson J1.
Thank you. Happy early birthday.
Speaking of the Jackal and Broken Arrow, like, look, we
Broken
gotta get into
Arrow.
a 90s action thing. Hot take. Okay, I know we're trying to do, like, Japanese April. I have a slew of Hong Kong movies I've been trying to get into, okay? I really want to... That was probably very loud.
Right by the microphone. I apologize.
There's a lot of Hong Kong cinema that I really want to get into. I feel like, hear me out, we could spend some time in Japan, then we could hop over to the mainland and explore some Chinese, and then down to Hong Kong, not the mainland, cinema, and kind of experience Asian cinema. And then we could follow John Woo all the way over to Hollywood.
Hollywood.
With
Sorry. I have to do that every time.
We're gonna follow John Woo over to the States, and I'm just joking. I love that you do that. And start with John Woo did Broken Arrow, came from Hong Kong. I would love, maybe we could segue from Japanese film to Hong Kong film to John Woo to 90s action.
Looks like Great Job Nerds is saying that's where I'm going.
Hell yeah, dude.
Watch out, Wedgling Con Air, question mark, exclamation point. And to that I say, maybe, question mark, exclamation point.
Because look, we got some Jackie Chan. We got some new Jackie Chan and we haven't watched yet. Hopefully we'll get an order from Hong Kong Rescue soon and get our other John Woo stuff, like the remasters of The Killer and Hard Boiled. You need to see Hard Boiled like nobody's business.
True. True words.
And then we can, and then I have this tape of Bullet in the Head, which is a really difficult to find John Woo movie with a badass title that I would love to watch. And then we could come over and do some 90s action cinema, which is like what you grew up on.
Totally. How fun. Okay, I'd say for Birthday Rex, you can't go wrong with John Waters.
John Waters and John Woo. I love that. Reverse alphabetical order.
Serial Mom.
Have you seen Serial Mom? Kathleen Turner plays a psychopath. It's like a parody of The Nuclear Family. That like, what if the mom was a murderer?
Amazing.
It's really good. It's funny. I think it was produced for HBO.
Thank you for that rec. That is on my short list now.
Yes, I rewatched that. It really scared me as a kid because she's like vicious. And as a kid, I was never afraid of monsters. I was afraid of people doing monstrous things.
Yeah.
I remember there's like a guy. Here's the one thing I'll tell you. There's like a guy who hits on her daughter and she like pulls his liver out. It's a pretty fucked up movie. But it's Sean Waters comedy.
Yeah.
June, you want to lay down? Okay. Well, the dog is here now, asking for attention. I fed them early, I will say.
Well, I think maybe it's time for new arrivals.
I think it's time for new arrivals, y'all. The sound of the vacuum means it's time for new arrivals. All right, we're going to hop over to new arrivals, which is what we got into the store this week. I gotta remember to... Hollywood. We're broadcasting live from...
Hollywood.
From slightly north of Hollywood.
Not exactly
Hollywood.
The suburbs of Hollywood, where you can afford your rent.
Okay, we got some really good stuff in the store this week, y'all. I'm really excited to share it, but there's a lot of it, so I'm going to make it quick. But first of all, I have to share that I completed a Holy Grail collection this week.
That wasn't last week? Oh, the days.
I don't think so.
The days go by, the days blur together.
Days go by. Wait, I don't think so. Did we talk about Visionaries last week?
I guess not.
I don't think so.
I don't think we did, actually.
All right, y'all. So, for a long time, look, this is very video store. When I was a very little kid, my mom used to own a store called the Diabetes Shop. And it was a little store that sold sugar-free candy and insulin testing kits. My mom's a nurse, and it was there to cater to the diabetic community. Right around the corner from that shop was a video store, and I would go there all the time as a little kid because I'd go with my mom to work because, parents both worked, so I would sometimes join them. I remember seeing this tape sitting at that video store and being so entranced by how freaking cool it looked. And I just never got into it as a kid. They were always checked out, they were always rented, but I always thought they looked so cool. Now, I've talked about Visionaries on this show before, but I don't think there's a single aesthetic that I saw as a kid that has been more influential on the kind of thing that I would grow as an adult into liking more. Now, I have had 5 of the 7 total tapes of Visionaries, comprising the entire run of the show, for a while now. And I've been looking for volumes 5 and volume 7 for a long time. They are simply never available. And then I happened up on eBay and found someone selling a complete series, including 5 and 7, for, I will be honest, far less than they should have been charging. So I bought it, and now I have some duplicates that I'm selling, but I also have, for the first time, the completed Visionaries VHS
Look at that.
collection. Look at that.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Take a look at it.
Take a look at that.
So I am just so stoked to actually go through these and watch them all. The first few actually have holograms on the covers underneath the titles. But just every piece of art on these. Like, the gimmick of the show is that there's a world called Prismos, that all the it's a super futuristic technological space world, and then all of the technology fails. And so they have to rely on this wizard, to power everything with magic, including giving them suits that basically give them Patronuses that come out of their chest, hence the hologram. Now, like most 80s kids shows, this was invented entirely to sell toys, specifically toys with hologram stickers. But I'm not interested in the toys, because this show is actually immaculately, gorgeously animated with a very, like, adult, doesn't treat its audience like idiots plots. I love it very much. Someday, maybe we'll make a $300 million film adaptation of this story.
Ooh. Knights of the Bright Light.
Knights of the Magical Light.
Knights of the Magical Light.
Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light.
In Hollywood.
Okay, keeping it going.
Take it too far.
We talked about Peter Weir a few weeks ago. Finally picked up this Picnic at Hanging Rock from Criterion. This is the out-of-print version of it, because there is currently a Blu-ray, but they briefly put out this thick, beautiful copy. That includes the novel. So that will be something we watch in the very near future. Got this tape of Candyman. Shout out to the VHS Vagrants group for hooking me up with this on the cheap.
Possibly one of the most iconic VHS covers of our childhood.
For sure, yeah. And it's in perfect condition, too. It's, 92? 93? It's in very good condition.
I know everyone remembers walking by that at the video store.
Mm-hmm.
Being like, what is that?
Being like, I can't watch that. That'll ruin me. Cool. Still working on the Vestron video collection. Vestron has been putting out some really nice... it's actually an imprint of Lionsgate, but basically they've been going through Vestron, which, for those who don't know, is a 80s horror VHS distributor. They've been going through them, giving them really nice remasters and these nice kind of like shiny metal slip sleeve Blu-rays. So I picked up a few more of these in the Amazon sale. They had a buy two, get one free sale a few weeks ago. The Gate, very excited to finally have that. Beyond Reanimator, the weakest of the trilogy for sure, but a Reanimator movie nonetheless. And a super slept on, fantastic 80s horror movie, Parents.
Now, what is Parents? Because I didn't even know that was a new arrival.
Oh yeah, Parents is basically Randy Quaid, Mary Beth Hurt. Okay, but Randy Quaid's the real name actor. This is just like a movie about, you know, there's a billion. We were talking earlier about Erie, Indiana, Goosebumps. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a million stories about kids who like suspect that something's amiss,
right? And
everyone gaslights them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this movie is about what if your parents were straight up just cannibals and you started to realize that.
Would that be a good double feature with Serial Mom, or too much?
Oh my god, it would be wonderful. Plus, this is an 82-minute movie, and it's very much also a satire of 50s suburbia. I mean, look at the cover.
Great.
That's a wonderful idea. I think you should write that down. And I can't wait to watch The Gate.
Yeah, we got some love for The Gate in the chat.
Also trying to get, like I mentioned earlier, trying to get some of these hand-drawn animations on Blu-ray.
We got a stack this week.
I told you, dude. But the thing is, I got these in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, these came together. These are super cheap because no one cares about them anymore because Disney Plus. But I care about them. So, finally got a Blu-ray of Little Mermaid, of Cinderella, and of Aladdin. I personally just, like, take so much joy in watching hand-drawn animation, especially Disney's golden era stuff, on Blu-ray. Can't wait to watch Aladdin. And then finally, the big one. I literally mean the big one in terms of the box and the subject material. Mothra, the moth. Mothra is her Japanese name, or Mothra, her Americanized pronunciation, or anglicized pronunciation. I don't remember if the moth creature in Godzilla 2014 is meant to be Mothra, but if so, it's Mothra. This movie, I had no idea. I totally thought that Mothra's debut was in Godzilla vs. Mothra. Turns out she actually debuted 4 years earlier in her own standalone film before the crossover. Not only that, this is also directed by Ishiro Honda, the man who helmed most of the original Godzilla series. This is a far cry from Godzilla in the fact that whereas Godzilla represents the destruction of the atomic age and Hiroshima and Nagasaki and pain, and nature's revenge at man for playing God, Mothra is a benevolent goddess that represents Earth and Gaia and love and protecting of mankind. And so Mothra and Godzilla are really like kind of the god of creation and god of destruction in this kaiju-verse. Cannot wait to watch this. Well, that concludes the new arrivals. I knew it was a fat stack this week.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Well, you're with us, shall we?
We shall.
Okay, let's go on a movie.
Movie Club.
Movie Club.
Oh, by the way, I just remembered I'm wearing this. Baby Lion is our production company. Technically, it's what produces this show. This logo, just bought on a hat impulsively from Vistaprint. But this logo was designed by Great Job Nerds. So, Thank you, Great Job Nerds. Okay, so we're in our movie club, which
Feel
means...
free to drop your link.
Yeah, drop your link.
Oh.
All right, y'all. The movie club pick of the week being "Vengeance Is Mine," directed by Shohei Imamura.
Ooey, ooey, ooey. Whoa.
1979.
I took notes.
I took notes too. They are right in this drawer, actually.
These are going to be hard to read and make sense of, but I think we both had some thoughts on this movie.
Absolutely.
This movie got the wheels a-turning.
So first of all, for those who want alternate box art, this is what we watched, the Criterion release, Vengeance Is Mine. It's a longer one. So who got to this?
Yeah,
who watched this?
Let us know in the chat if you participated in Movie Club this week. Vengeance Is Mine. I mean, we'll get into it, I'm sure, but I thought this movie was great. I have a lot of thoughts. I don't even know where to begin.
Let's see what the chat has to say, and I think I've done a lot of talking. I really would I have my notes and my thoughts. I want to know what you think. Not to color anything incorrect, or not to color anything towards hyping this, but I will say I also thought this was like damn near a masterpiece. And I'm trying not to throw the M word around since you clocked me for it a few months ago.
For masterpiece. Yeah, that was a while ago.
It was a while, but have you noticed that I've been a little...
Yes, but now you need to stop saying things are my favorite.
I know. I'm working on it. One thing at a time. But yeah, I do think that this is... I would call this a masterpiece. And
yeah, I would as well.
When I was kind of doing my light, as we do, light Googles to see, what have these movies... How people talked about these movies already. I don't know the source on this, but I saw a poster for a repertory screening of it, and there was something written on the poster that said, arguably the greatest Japanese film of the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know if I know enough to say that, but I will say I think this movie is thought of in very high esteem, and should be thought of in very high esteem. Anyone in the chat want to chime in? Wedge said, took 2 days to get it done, but yes, watched it and loved it. We almost split it up too. It is a longer one.
Yeah, it's funny. We started it a little later than we intended to, and I think we were like, you know what? If we get halfway through and we start getting sleepy, or just feel like it's getting too late into the evening, we can always revisit. And by the time I was like in it,
me too.
By the time it got going, I was like so invested.
Yeah. Let's talk about it here before we dive in on the meaning of things. Let's talk about this movie from a, what am I trying to say? Stylistic perspective. Mm-hmm. I think we both said this after it. It feels like almost that it would be perfectly at home in the realm of like 70s American movies like Taxi Driver, like Parallax View.
Yes.
Like definitely had this like cold, detached, journalistic style.
Medium wide, just sort of like straight on, but then every once in a while there's like an overhead or like a weird forced perspective thing, and you're
just
just
and the handheld.
Mm-hmm.
To me, like, there was this, like, the stylistic, it felt very at home with, like, detached journalistic 70s, like, paranoia stuff, like Pakula, or Fincher, or Scorsese, but it didn't have the, like, freewheeling, like, music video vibe of a Scorsese movie.
Right.
It was very much, like, journalistic and beautifully framed out, but then every once in a while, we're freewheeling with a camera around a space, and I think that the art of the handheld is really something that has been lost in recent years. Never see handheld used for effect anymore. It's always either like, oh, this is a found footage shaky cam.
It's over stylized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not. But one thing I thought was so cool about this style was that this is based on true story. So we're seeing something that's journalistically true. We also don't have a full statement from the real Enzo, and so Izio. So we're also filling in the gaps. So we're using film to tell part of the story. Mm-hmm. And the way that this movie was able to juggle the fact with the embellishment through its film style really was just pretty stellar.
Yeah.
Just watching it. Also, these days someone might compare it to Tarantino, just with its kind of structure and the cutting. I think I already said
Tarantino.
Fincher. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's so clear that Tarantino, the more Japanese movies you watch, the more you realize how much
Tarantino's influenced by it.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see what's going on in the chat.
Okay. Munson says, it's been years. Remember it fondly. Need to dig deeper into Imamura. That's next for me. I actually have the pornographers pulled out right here to jump into next. Look, I've seen 2 Imamura movies, and 2 of them are my favorite movies of all time, so I want to dive in more, too. Wedge said, incredible characters, wonderful societal, cultural vignettes. Yes, the handheld shots in this movie are great. Interesting choice of referring to them as vignettes. I think it's a very astute way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I had not thought of them that way.
I hadn't thought of them as vignettes, but it makes sense with, like, the way that the time and the perspective sort of hops around, since the story is not told chronologically. It makes sense to see them as vignettes.
Mm-hmm. And to see them as these vignettes, like you said, societal, cultural vignettes, they're also very much people that we spend time with. Mm-hmm. The vignettes are very grounded to one character, and that character represents their portion of the world.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings us to some of my points about how this movie is about how everyone exists on a spectrum, in how they cope with the inherent bleakness of living. And in many ways, it's a very cynical movie, which is interesting because I think Imamura loves to traffic in the cynical but find the reason for living in it. And this movie really feels like it is like... It's interesting because we could talk all day about American cinema in the 70s and why Watergate and Vietnam made people feel the way they did. I don't know Japanese history, contemporary history, well at all. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't tell you what was going on in the 70s, but the political, like the lack of faith in the system seems so on display here.
Right. I think, well, that kind of leads into...
Go off, Queen.
Well, okay. I'm going to try to, if by go off you mean try to make sense of my notes, then yes, I will go off. Okay, so I was thinking about like Japan pre and post World War II, and I was thinking about the title of Vengeance is Mine, and I was confused because I think maybe Roger Ebert maybe even poses this question in his review, which I did skim over. That's kind of really the only thing that I skimmed over, but he says vengeance for what? Which was kind of what I was the whole time grappling with, is like this sort of like nihilistic approach to just violence and, you know, whatever, what vengeance for what? Like that is the title, the titular thing. So I was kind of grappling with that, and then I was like, all right, so a light Google leads you to Romans 12:19, which is basically saying, don't seek vengeance yourself, leave that for God. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
Who said it better than all?
Yes.
And that's a Jay-Z quote.
Oh.
That's how I knew it's a Bible verse.
Really?
Because Jay-Z raps, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, who said it better than all.
Well, there you go. So if you see this as like Catholicism or like the West versus Buddhism and Japan and pre and post. There's so much like Freudian shit in here, parental themes that I was kind of thinking like mother, father, country, and it's like vengeance for the country.
For sure.
Like post World War II with the occupation that was led by the United States that's completely altered the face of Japan. I don't know if that's, you know, even a part of the title or kind of some of the running themes, but it made sense to me. Like you were saying, the true story kind of being built together with these fictional threads. That's sort of where I was kind of seeing that, you know, with the flashback, with the, you know, was he an interpreter for the U.S. Army?
Yeah, he was. I think that's another interesting thing is like in the, I don't exactly know. And I think that's the post-World War II, like, occupation, as you said. So I do think that, like, he's like a guide interpreter.
Yeah.
But he's not a safe space for Japanese people.
No.
He leads the devil to their door.
Exactly. But then I was thinking, okay, so vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I was also thinking, like, this guy is clearly a sociopath, but I was wondering if his sociopathy manifested in thinking he was like a god. That he is God, that he can be cold and sort of like there doesn't have to necessarily be reason behind it. It's a little confusing. I was getting a little muddied there, but I was thinking, like, does he see himself like as a god-like figure or a devil-like figure, potentially? And then if he does see himself as a godlike figure, he knows he's going to get caught. He knows he's going to be murdered. Is he seeing himself as a martyr in a weird way?
Okay, I have thoughts.
There's a lot of speculation there, and just sort of me like spitballing. I don't know.
No, I think you. Well, no, don't say you don't know, because I want to jump in exactly where you left off. As well as Wedge is saying he's definitely angry. What do you think he's angry about, or is he just a psychopath? To your point, what is the vengeance for? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think you make a very good point drawing this back to not only the Bible quote, but what is the vengeance for? The vengeance is for existing. The vengeance this is the story. Yes, I do think he sees himself as a martyr. He is murdered by the state after roaming the countryside. Mm-hmm. It's a very Jesus inverted. It's
exactly.
Antichrist.
Exactly.
He travels and he preaches his gospel of selfishness and destruction until he is murdered. Not murdered. He is tried and killed by the state. Jesus was murdered by the state. Mm-hmm. Same thing, but he is what is he rebelling against? What is he vengeful against? Is the fact that he was created, and he was, in this case, his dad being the God figure. He wants to destroy God. He says that at the end. I want to kill you most of all, but I can't. This is the story of Jesus coming to earth, being told he's the savior, and saying, fuck you.
This is fun that we have similar thoughts, because for those of you who may not be regulars, we tend to hold off on deep discussions of the movie club until we get onto the stream. So this is interesting. We had very lightly touched upon some post-watch.
We didn't really
thoughts.
talk about the religious aspect of it much.
But I think it's interesting that you also saw the parallels there with Jesus and God and paternal.
And the Virgin Mary.
Virgin Mary.
And his wife. Who is virginal to God because she never sleeps with him. But it's all a lie. She's virginal to the God figure, his father. Even though they want to sleep with each other, they are lying. His father wants to sleep with her. And at the end of the movie, almost implies some creepy pedophilic things about her daughters. But he's a man of God. He surely wouldn't show that. He surely wouldn't act on it. He's a giant hypocrite. And our main character grows up seeing that hypocrisy, specifically in the force of the emperor, the force of the war, taking his father's manhood away from him, making his father is removing his father as that force. And I think this is the vengeance is against existence itself.
Boredom.
Saying, what is it? Yeah, like the back of the box says something about how it's a portrait of humanity. The blurb that the Criterion wrote about it, someone referred to it as a glimpse at humanity's raging id. I think that it's a really good way to put it. It's an id. It is like, I don't want to exist. I want to destroy the thing that made me. Therefore, I am going to roam the earth in the gospel of myself. In many ways, it's very like demonic. And to your point, does he see himself as God? Maybe. I think he sees himself as like, to me, the first thing I wrote down on here was demon on earth. That's my first bullet point. But I also wrote down the impulse to self-erase, to self-immolate.
Mm-hmm.
He ultimately wants to destroy himself, but he is not brave enough. Not that suicide is a brave act, or should be celebrated. But he is not brave enough to turn that on himself. So he destroys everything around him to essentially force the world to kill him. Because he just wants to destroy. He wants to erase himself from existence out of a profound sickness and a desire to get revenge, to get vengeance on a world that he didn't ask to be born into.
There's a lot of narcissism at play there too.
But this is also something we all feel. We all have these moments, and I'm not saying we all feel that we want to hurt people, but we all have these moments of, I didn't ask to be born. Fuck this. Mm-hmm. This hurts. Life hurts. And this is simply the logical extension. What if you removed all boundaries from the expression of that? And what if you made that the worst it could possibly be? He's undeniably an evil, psychopathic, awful character. But he and his father, and this is where I get into my whole, spectrum of sinning. So I was positing that if this world that we exist in is a bleak, unforgiving, cruel place, if that's what the world is, then we exist on a spectrum of acceptance versus honesty, honesty versus dishonesty. His father is dishonest to the core, does not accept it, sins his ass off inside, but never lets it show because he's got to be that good Catholic man. Whereas our main character, on the other hand, is completely honest and has no borders to what he'll allow himself to do. But then all the people he meets along the way exist in their own way. The older woman who herself was a murderer and who was a gambler now, her daughter, everyone's kind of sinning in their own way, but they've decided to rationalize it because it's how they survive. It's their corner of this awful world, and they're taking what they feel they need. They're taking as much from the pie of sin as they feel they need to get through and live another day.
Yeah.
And this guy doesn't give a shit. He's going to take the whole pie and fuck what anyone else does. And that's why I think this is like the story of an antichrist.
I think so too. I think that the whole thing feels very biblical and kind of in line with what you were saying as like, this question of morality versus religion, and like what is goodness, what is sin, and this sort of biblical nature of the whole movie. I think it's interesting that the person that at the end of the day does the right thing, is a sex worker.
Uh-huh.
And she's the one that's like actually, stops the cycle of evil.
It is interesting, but it's not that strange if you give it a biblical reading.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying okay. It's perfectly in line with the biblical nature of the story and this idea of what is moral, what is sin, like you were saying, the father grappling the whole time with being an immoral person who's staunchly religious. Those things, do not match up. And, people thinking like sex work or something is inherently wrong, which it's not at all. But, she becomes, in a weird way, kind of the tiny hero at the end.
The Magdalene.
Yeah, exactly.
And like Magdalene and like his mother, they kind of tragically fall to the side as the story becomes about him and his sacrifice, which of course is the inversion of a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Because he is not dying for our sins. He is dying to protect us. Because he's dying to protect us, but not from God's wrath, from his own wrath, which he has claimed.
Yeah.
Really good, really interesting, good call on the fact that she's a prostitute, which I feel like in Japanese cinema at this time too, there's a lot of representation of sex workers in the 60s and 70s of Japanese cinema, and of them as like real women struggling in a capitalist system post-war, and kind of picking up the pieces of identity and who they are after generational trauma from the world's largest singular mass murder event. But there's a lot, like Seijun Suzuki in the 60s, Story of a Prostitute, Gates of Hell, or I think it's Gates of Hell. There's a lot of these stories that are being told. And that's what's so interesting, is that this is 79, so this is like after 20 years of stories being told about sex workers in Japan, that in 79, Imamura is taking what often may have been like an exploitation movie or an art movie, and he really is doing the Christian thing of centering these people, and like blessed are the meek.
Yeah.
But in this movie, they also pay the price of the man who has decided to rebel against what he's taught. Good point, Wedge, that he also destroys his offspring.
Yeah. Oh, and on that note, quickly, just wanted to say, I thought that the moment leading up to that had some really beautiful visual metaphors that sort of, okay, so the first two murders are very bloody, very violent, you know. Her murder is very intimate. It's very quiet. It's very, it's like almost precious.
It's her martyrdom.
Yeah.
It's her sainthood, because she has become, in a different way, maybe she's closer to the Magdalene character.
To clarify.
But I think she's closer to the Magdalene character.
Yeah.
Maybe than the one who gives him away. Like, I think that your point still stands. But if we are mapping on Bible characters, I do think she is the Mary Magdalene who falls for him. And I think that when he kills her, she accepts it as like she accepts it as like an ascendance.
I think she does. And it's the only murder that he commits with, you know, that we know of, at least, with his bare hands. But the leading up to that, she's speaking with her mother, they're eating tangerines, and she gets sprayed with juice, and it looks like a blood splatter on her chest. And then right before she's murdered, she's making kimchi, which is very fleshy and literally looks like bloody flesh in her hands.
Oh my God, you're right.
With she's got that like chili garlic paste, and you know, it's like a very messy. Her hands are literally covered in blood when she's murdered.
That's a very, very good point.
So
Stigmata.
Yeah. So I thought that was like that those two things, you know, both with foreshadowing and metaphor, were beautiful visuals, very interesting, very subtle. Well, at least the first one was subtle, but.
And at the end, when the father and Kazuko, his wife, are taking the what do you call those things? Gondoliers. They're taking the I think so. Gondolier. I think they're taking the gondolier up to the mountain to spread his bones and his ashes, and they pass all the nuns coming down, and it's like the nuns are descending from the mountain into the realm of people, while they're trying to get access to heaven. Yeah. And then they can't get rid of the bone. There's this magical realism element at the end because they're stuck here. They're stuck in the mud. For sure.
Which, if we're going to return to my original point of vengeance for potentially subtext here, country, and your point of generational trauma, that all ties in together.
You can't shake it.
You can't shake it.
This is a theme with Imamura's work. I don't want to give away the ending of a very good Imamura movie, but there is a movie that is about specifically fallout from World War II that Imamura directed, in which it ends with an old man saying you always have to hope and see the rainbow, and he goes outside and looks at the rainbow, but the movie's in black and white intentionally. And that's like Imamura's I think oftentimes likes to end his movies with this sense of like, you can hope and pray, but you're not leaving Earth. You're not leaving where we all have to be.
Yeah.
And again, which kind of brings me back to like, if you accept reality, if you accept the harshness of living, these characters all cope with it in their own way. And this is like the completely untethered, a man who does not feel he has to act as humans are expected to act at all.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the, you know, I think most of us have a innate sense of right and wrong and conscience. And so, of course, he's a sociopath. He's missing that. But to reduce it to a crime spree is to reduce it.
Yeah.
What are your other notes?
Those were my notes. That kind of wraps up what I had jotted down, at least, or had at top of mind.
Well, brilliant reading as always. I really quickly want to see you don't see the grandmother die, as Wedge put.
Oh yeah, and I was going to say that even then you see him ascending the stairs, but he's got a rope.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So.
Can we get some love for that shot where he walks up the stairs and seamlessly leads into the mom walking through the hall?
Good night, great job, nerds.
Good night, great job, nerds. Love you.
Shot where he walks up the stairs and sees. Oh yeah, that was beautiful. It was very jarring. Speaking of magical realism, it's the only transition from like one point in time or existence to another that is like feels like it's calling back to large sets, the theatrical sets that would.
That's why I want to watch Female Prisoner Scorpion so bad. Is because that movie does that a million times.
Really?
Yeah, I fucking love it. I love transformative sets. 6 Feet does that a lot too.
Yeah.
Where it'll have a large set and people walk and the lighting changes.
Yeah.
There's nothing I enjoy more in a movie than when they flash back by changing the lighting and doing a quick change on costume and panning the camera without cutting.
It's fun. They do play with light a lot, and I did really enjoy that moment where she's clicking the lamp on and off.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was interesting. Lightness, darkness, sen, morality.
The only other thing I really had written down is just this kind of like the procedural element to it and how here's something, the passionless crimes of passion.
Ooh, I love that.
Like this is normally I think most people who commit murder are acting in a crime of passion. The people who sit around and plan their murders out are few and far between and generally become subjects of documentary series. I feel like this movie explores something that isn't either of those, which is the crime that happens in the moment, but from a place of almost like detached decision making. It's like a premeditated murder that is also a crime of passion.
Yeah, it's very weird. I just had a weird thought pop in my head because Wedge in the chat is talking about some specific shots, but after he's killed, I'm sorry, what is her name?
I think his wife's name is Kazuko.
No, the other...
I forget.
After he's killed her, I think it's maybe the only shot in the whole movie that's shot top down, like overhead, like the God perspective. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was interesting.
And she's laying out, kind of. He doesn't overdo it, though. Yeah. He's not a Western filmmaker. Exactly. He doesn't need to drive it in. Yeah. Also, the weird thing with, like, them in the theater right before he is called out, it's the newsreel about the Kennedy assassination, which is kind of like the idea that, like, the country that, as you said, the country that bombed and then occupied this island nation, forever changing its DNA, now you're watching a newsreel, and made it a democracy after an imperial, in the empire, like that fall of the empire and that rebuilding and that searching for the self in like this broken world, like we'll never be able to imagine what that's like. But I think that it's super interesting that this actor who acts with complete impunity in this world is found out by watching the story of like the conquering nation's idealistic young leader killed. I mean, Kennedy was a Jesus figure for many people in the West, but like it's almost you can imagine this character seeing that as like seeing that John salute, which moves Americans to this day, seeing that from him seeing it cynically, like the country that bombed us wants us to feel sad. Yeah. That their idealistic good guy president died. Yeah. Okay. So I think your Vengeance for Country is a very good read as well.
Well, thank you. I thought that's some really interesting observations. Any other thoughts in the chat on Vengeance is Mine?
Yeah, share them if you got them. Otherwise, we can start trying to figure out what our movie club pick's going to be moving forward. Yeah. Would love to stay on the island of Japan. If y'all are still cool with doing Japanese cinema April,
I'm having a blast.
good. So I got a lot. We always go through this, like, which direction do we go? We talked about favorite animes earlier. We talked about Ghibli and filling in some closed windows tinted windows for ourselves there. We talked about earlier. We discussed literary adaptation, Shakespeare, as well as Kurosawa. Rashomon was on the table. I also will submit Throne of Blood again, as it checks a few boxes there. I do think we'll probably have to hit one Kurosawa movie here.
Yeah. And if you're new to the stream, thanks for watching. Just if you're seeing the camera move there, as you may or may not know, that is our animals playing.
It's a cat literally bonking. Okay, guys.
Okay,
all right.
That's enough.
All right, guys. That's enough.
But as always, this is an interactive community stream. So if you have thoughts on Japanese cinema or Japanese cinema adjacent or 70s cinema adjacent movie club picks that you'd like to pitch, typically we just kind of throw a bunch of stuff into a pile and then we whittle it down and sometimes take a vote.
Yeah.
But
and we've been going back in time this month. We started with Interstellar and the aughts, and then we moved, or the teens, and then the aughts, and then we moved to,
Tetsuo the Iron Man.
80s, and then we moved to 70s. So I am down for some, like, we could do some Oshima, we could do some Suzuki. I'm a big fan of Suzuki. He's basically Japan's Godard. I feel like you need to watch Suzuki to understand Japanese cinema, but he's very, like Godard, very much about breaking the structure of genre and is pretty esoteric at times. But also like Godard, very much like 80-minute movies where you have a girl, a gun, and a gangster, and you throw it together in a mishmash, experiment with it, see what happens. Very fun. And then, moving backwards from there, 50s, Kurosawa, and then we can keep going backwards and we get into some Ozu. So it really depends on the vibe you want. Meditative, classic, formalist, experimental, punk, exploitation, pinky violence, women in prison, whatever. Where do we want to go, y'all? What's the vibe? I gotta use the restroom.
All right. Yeah, just drop in the chat. Let us know what you think. Let's see. Throne of Blood, I'm very intrigued by. I'm trying to see, I think. We've got a bunch. Female. Has anyone seen Female Prisoner 701? Scorpion? Adam has been dying for me to watch this movie. I have not watched it yet. I think maybe it was his staff pick a few weeks ago, which, by the way, if you don't follow us, you can follow us at You Are In A Video Store on Instagram. We post our personal staff picks as well as our movie club every week, as well as some fun BTS and new arrival stuff. These animals are really getting hyper over here. It is the time of night where they come out to play. But we might go down this rabbit hole and watch some Women in Prison from this here box set. I'm trying to think what else. What else could be on the table? Not a lot going on in the chat. I think maybe it's pretty open-ended this week.
Yeah, I'm down. What are you feeling, Stephanie?
Well, I was just saying that I am intrigued by Throne of Blood. I also am surprised you haven't seen Rashomon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down to watch Rashomon. I'm down to watch... Also, we talked about doing, like, Yojimbo or Hidden Fortress. There's a bunch of Kurosawas. I'm down to just pick one. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen, like... I've only seen a few big Kurosawas, like High and Low 7. I've seen, like, the big ones, you know?
Yeah.
But there's plenty... I mean, I haven't seen Hidden Fortress, which is, like, the inspiration for Star Wars.
That's interesting. Well, I know that kind of when it comes to Japan and Italy, those are like very much in your wheelhouse.
One of my favorites.
Particularly with Japanese cinema, I'm not super familiar, so I have been, or not as familiar, I have been loving kind of exploring more across the board, so I'm very open.
What are you feeling? Do you want something like, I'll throw this out there, Lady Snowblood? That's also 70s, but it's a little bit like, it's not quite the art film that Vengeance is Mine is. It's like much more like action violence. So is Female Prisoner, Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah.
If you want like some like samurai sword spraying blood, like is that the vibe, or do you want something that's a bit more like Throne of Blood is oh my god, is it Macbeth or is it? Oh wow, I might actually have this totally wrong. Macbeth, yeah, okay. Okay, watched Yojimbo pretty recently.
I can't tell if that says same exclamation point or
same.
Okay, same.
Bad Sleep Well and Stray Dog would be sweet too. Yeah, I'm down for really anything. So we're on the same. So let's do some Kurosawa.
Okay. That sounds
great. And then Wedge says that Grey Job Nerds and him watched Yojimbo pretty recently. I still am pushing to watch Seven Samurai, although it's 4 hours long, so we can always backburner that. Okay, Kurosawa. What do we think here?
All right, Kurosawa. What have we got on the table here? Lady Snow.
Lady Snowblood's not Kurosawa, but it's super fun. Lady Snowblood is like if you want to see where Kill Bill came from.
Yeah, which I remember after you watched that movie, you were like, "Well, that was badass."
When I watched Lady Snow, I haven't seen Lady Snowblood since college.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What am I thinking of?
I don't know.
Like a year ago?
I don't know.
What am I thinking of?
Here, y'all. Let's do a poll. We'll do a poll. Okay. Lady Snowblood. I'm putting it on there every time.
I was just saying, when you got up, you've been pushing that one hard.
I have been. It's real fun. Now I feel like I'm overhyping it. And...
That's good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. How about just to throw a wild card in there?
Totoro.
All right, y'all. Oh, Hidden Fortress, well, consider Totoro be Hidden Fortress then. Pick the one that speaks to you the most. I will abstain from voting. Or no, we can both vote. Man, this is hard. This is like 3 of my favorite movies. Plus, I'm a sucker for any movie with blood in the title. Haha. And if you're just joining us, we are about to wrap things up. We generally go for about 2.5 hours. It's 5 p.m. If you're on the West Coast, it's 7 p.m. Central is when we start the show every Tuesday. We always start with a what did you watch? Ask you in the chat to tell us what you watched. We tell you, we chime, we go back and forth. Then we do new arrivals, talk about the new stuff that came into the store or new boutique Blu-ray releases of the week. And we finally end with our movie club, which tonight we discussed Vengeance is Mine, and we are currently picking next week's title. So if you'd like to weigh in, the poll has a few minutes left, and we are going. Looks like we're getting some good votes here. Also, I briefly looked at my phone while I was in the bathroom and saw some insane comments on our Baby Lion page from someone that we definitely need to block.
Oh.
Okay, animals. Hey, guys.
Oh, hey.
Hey, guys. Can you guys seriously not choose your nap time? We have wonderful animals. They love to sleep like complete bricks until we start, at which point they get very excited.
They love to sleep until it's time for us to sleep or do anything that involves a need to not make noise.
Well, looks like we're down between Lady Snowblood and Female Prisoner Scorpion.
Ooh.
Look, I'm going to be real. These are both excellent movies. They are both from the same few-year period. They are both Meiko Kaji vehicles. They are both starring Miko Kaji as a woman who gives a silent performance as essentially an angel of vengeance. So they're a really great follow-up, except in these movies, the vengeance is just.
Can we get a tiebreaker?
Let's get a tiebreaker.
Can we get a tiebreaker?
Lady Snowblood is about...
Or a sandwich?
Lady Snowblood is about a woman whose family is murdered, seeking revenge. Female Prisoner Scorpion is about a woman who is unjustly thrown in jail, seeking revenge. They are both revenge movies starring the same actress, same era of filmmaking. And honestly, they're like 85 minutes each, so they probably would make for a really good double feature. So at this point, since we're getting people saying down for Snowblood, since we're seeing that one called out by name, let's go for Lady Snowblood.
Okay.
I really think this is like a crowd pleaser, total popcorn movie, but also really representative of what was happening in exploitation action cinema in Japan in the 70s.
Yeah.
You're going to have a good time. It's real fun. And maybe we'll double feature with Female Prisoner.
Yeah.
Cool. Then, in that case, we just need to do our staff picks.
Yeah.
What's your staff pick, Boo? I had one, and I totally spaced. I had it decided on very early tonight.
Well, okay. So earlier when we were talking about what did we watch this week, and I'm sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice.
Me too.
We were talking about demons, and okay, so I have two potential ones.
Okay.
Demons made us think of stage fright, and then I wanted to pick stage fright, but then I thought maybe I'd already picked that as a staff pick before, which I want to do.
I don't know. You have to check that here. I'll give you the gram. You can scroll through.
If I have not picked stage fright before, I would like stage fright to be my staff pick.
Let's see here. I'm going to scroll through real quick and see. You have good staff picks. We'll have to do a little thing where we throw them all together at some point. You have not picked it.
All right.
All right. So Steph's staff pick is Stage Fright. Wonderful. Cool. Movie Club, Lady Snowblood. Steph, Stage Fright, and that is 1987. Is Italian. There is a newer Stage Fright from the teens. It is not that we were talking about. And then Adam's staff pick will be shit.
Can I tell you what my other one was going to be?
What was it going to be?
Critters 2.
I know, right? It's so right there. Oh, Last Temptation. Wait, have I recommended that? Has that been mine before? I don't think so. I think I'm going to make mine Last Temptation of Christ because, hey, it's still Easter week. And if you haven't seen it, see it. It's great. Let's see here.
It is great, and we won't get into it now, maybe another time, but I was mentioning earlier when we were talking about Last Temptation, we ended up watching that about a year ago, me for the first time, around Easter time, and it was by far one of the most organic and thoughtful conversations I think we've had after viewing a movie together.
Yeah.
So, I'll leave you with that.
It was very wonderful. And Munson's got your back. Hell yes, Killer Owl Murderer.
Yeah.
Stage Fright rules hard. This is the cover. We actually just got a Blu-ray copy of it. This is the cover if you're looking for it. It is... also, I mentioned it as... Now, if you're interested in silent movies, there's a movie called The Last Warning. I think it's just 2 to the right of Donnie up there. Thank you. The Last Warning. This is a silent era horror movie about a bunch of actors who keep dying while trying to put on a show. This is about a bunch of actors who are locked into a theater overnight for a rehearsal and stuck in there with a psycho killer.
And it's scary.
It is legit scary.
It's legit scary.
This is a real bomb double feature right here if you're interested. But yeah, I guess with that, we're ready to log off for the night. Thanks for everyone for joining us. Tonight was a really wonderful stream.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
Thank you
shout out everyone.
Thank you to our regulars. Great job, Nerds, Wedge, Pathos, and thank you to new people to the stream.
And shout out Munson for coming back.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I guess I have been one of your hosts / clerks, Stephanie Thoreson. You can follow me at Flock of Schmeagles or us at You Are in a Video Store on Instagram.
You can follow me at Protextor. I've been your other host, Adam Protextor. Good night to you as well, Munson. And what else do we need to say? We need to say, watch more movies, be kind, rewind, Black Lives Matter, get home safe, and we'll see you in a week.
Bye!
You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. Store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. Store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. Store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video. From Lubitsch to Mamoulian, Kubrick to Leone, Corbucci and Suzuki, these movies take you to newer lands. We recommend it, never pretentious, it's never ending, just where our head is. It's one Kauai and a Slaughterhouse 5. Those Hollywood nights are Hong Kong on fire. I could watch it all night, press stop and rewind. Watch it again, you're strapped in, ain't no stopping the ride. Ask Ginger Rogers the time. Swing down to Broadway and lights. Ishii, Miike, Tarkovsky, Almodovar, Von Sternberg, Dietrich, Garbo, Garfield, Heathcliff with Transformers over on the 80s TV show. You need a hand, we can reach it. Move in silence like Murnau Melius Mishu. Spending afternoons with Maya, then watch Freddy Got Fingered. It's all love for that silver screen. Now baby, what that TV do? And we here every week too, so don't you touch that dial, bruh. We ain't skipping the previews. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. Store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. Store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. Store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video store. You are in a video store. Say you are in a video. You are in a video. You are in a video. Yeah, welcome to the rental shop. Yeah, welcome to the rental shop. Welcome to the rental shop. Yeah, welcome to the rental shop. Yeah, welcome to the rental shop. Say you are in a video. You are in a video. Rent that shit double. Yeah, 2 for 1, maybe on Tuesday night. Got the popcorn, I'm feeling just right. Should we get a couple new releases and a couple old ones? Yeah, no, I think we can get both. We have time. We'll watch them. Yeah, if we don't get around to that one,